Good evening. Once again, I'm Ava.
I'm Lucy.
And me and Lucy kind of made our own little school board agenda for ourselves. So first we have academics, and Mr. Doucette, our new graphics teacher, started on November 1st, and he is originally from Antigo, but he's coming to us from New York. We have midterms coming up, and our attendance rates over last week, Monday and Tuesday, where it was kind of, that Thanksgiving break where, some kids show up and some kids don't. It's 21 to 22%.
No. That was
November
21st
yeah.
and 22nd.
But we had an attendance rate of 72.34%.
So it was pretty low. And then we had an update on some field trips that were going on at the high school. There's been a lot of school forest field trips this year, and it's been a success from what we heard with the students. Everybody usually likes going to the school forest. And then Miss Fisher has an annual Lambeau field tour with her sports and entertainment marketing class. So that's just something coming up that students have to look forward to.
Next up, we have special events. So we previously had a career fair. It was on November 10th. Captain Poultry was 2 weeks ago. Juniors won. And the number of pounds that were brought in were 1,096 pounds. Oh, yeah. So basically, every day of that week, we have a specific food pantry item that we ask people to bring in if they possibly have that or if they can go and buy it. So donate it. But at the end of the week, we kind of gather everything up and we donate it to the food pantry every year. And then on December 13th, the Antigo High School students will be making a tile for our new mural. And their tile can be a specific club, sport, or a name of themselves.
And then we have what we like to call our looking ahead category. We set dates for dances, formals. So they set the date for prom, which is April 29th. Winter ball is January 14th for the sophomores. And then we just had a note about our dance attendance policy. There was a new policy this year for dance admissions where you have to have 90% or better attendance and be passing all classes. So if you had more than however many unexcused absences, you couldn't come to the homecoming dance. That was the only dance we've had so far. And there was concern about the number of attending students, how it would go down, but we kind of it was proven successful. I don't know how to word that, sorry. And there was approximately 200 kids at our homecoming dance, which is very high compared to previous years. So that's good. We think that's a student involvement thing that we're looking forward to because it seemed like there was a lot of kids who wanted to be there and who showed up. So that was nice. And then,
okay. Then we have sports and clubs. Right now we just have sports. There's nothing really major going on with clubs. So boys swim for high school, it started on November 7th. Girls swim just recently finished. I don't know if you guys heard on the news or in the paper that Chloe Tainter made it to state for her 100 butterfly, and she set a personal best. Do you want me to do girls basketball? Sure. Okay, and then for girls basketball, their first game was November 17th against Clintonville, and their next game is on November 29th versus Northland Pines.
Is that a home game on the 29th?
No, that is tomorrow night. They'll be away in Northland Pines. But boys basketball is home tomorrow night against Wittenberg. They had their first game over the weekend. They played Pulaski. So all the winter sports have pretty much started up now, including hockey, who had their first game November 18th against Medford, and then they play in Medford again on December 1st. Cross country, we had student Logan Higgins had gone to state, and he took 41st place out of 152 other students competing, so he did pretty good. That's kind of all we had on our list of stuff today. But we also have the FFA students had a little, I don't know what to call it, a present, a treat, whatever you want to say, for you guys. And I think it's just like a thank you kind of thing. So me and Ava will hand them out for you guys.
Thank you very much. Anybody have any questions for Ava or Lucy?
How'd you guys, or maybe it's for Clint, how'd you guys police the attendance thing for the dances? Did you have to have a list of students who met that requirement? And then did anybody try to come who wasn't on the list?
Yes, but not for attendance purposes. They were like, outside, oh, never, I shouldn't say that. Yes, people tried to come that were on the list.
And you kept them out?
Yes.
It went smoothly-ish, or it was
Yeah.
dramatic?
No, it went smoothly.
It was kind of all set in place, like everybody knew before, like we went through after and we looked at all of the people who wanted to, like, because when you buy your tickets, and then if they bought a ticket and then go talk to them and say, hey, you didn't meet the requirements, and there's kind of like an appeal thing, so if you missed a certain amount of school for, like, if you were sick or something, or like something, I don't know, like you could talk to them, it was more like, it wasn't just, I think you guys are getting what I'm saying, but I'm like trying to.
Extenuating circumstances.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Ava. Thank you, Lucy, for that report. Moving along to item B, public comment. Mary Kay or Tim, can you
There is
see?
none.
There's nobody signed in. Moving to item 3.
Dan, can I just ask you some questions about our Robert's rules?
We will get to that whenever we get down to the portion that will be introduced.
Okay.
Thank you. Number 3, consent agenda. Letter A, approval of agenda, minutes, and financial reports. I will be looking for a motion.
I move the board approve the agenda, minutes from the October 24th, 2022 Board of Education meeting, the special board meeting on November 7th, 2022, special board meeting expulsion hearing on November 15th, 2022, financial reports for October 2022, consideration of current bills, checks 6341 through 6419 in the amount of $236,002.61, ACH numbers 222-300-385 through 222-300-508 in the amount of $784,464.31, and one wire transfer in the amount of $23,954.16 for a total of $1,044,421.08.
Second.
Okay, the motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion on the approval of the agenda, minutes, and financial reports? Yes, ma'am, Angie.
I'm just curious, what is the Midwest Google Summit? There's a registration fee and then the lodging that we are reimbursed. I'm just wondering what that was for, what that is.
That was for Abby Maddock, who's our library media specialist, to attend a learning, it's very loud, a learning around new Google technology and tips and things. We're a Google organization, so she attended that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Any other questions?
This speaker is unusually vibrating tonight. I don't know if you can turn it down a little or. It's making a lot of
racket. Hearing no questions, Mary Kay, roll call vote, please.
Bardo,
Yes.
Borneman,
Yes.
Deep,
Yes.
Maddock Nelson,
Yes.
Matt Miller,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Schreiber,
Yes.
Schrader,
Yes.
Pyatt,
Yes. And the motion carries. Item number 4, new business. Letter A is the band uniform presentation. I'll ask Mr. Austin Capel, the band director, to step up to the microphone, and he's going to make a presentation. Capel, can you come to the mic so we can hear you? Thank you.
Well, if you did not see them yet, these are our new marching band uniforms. Can like three of you come up this way to get a better look at it? Yeah. All right. Nothing like whatever. All right. There's no red carpet, but okay. So these are our new uniforms. A very long process in the making, but thanks to all of your support, these things came to a reality pretty quickly. So we got to debut these this fall at during our regular marching band season, and we've showcased them at our first Rose Bowl fundraising event at Schofield at the end of September, and we did a big marching band performance there and showed these things off as well. We got the regular uniform in black, and then our drum major uniform in white. Currently waiting on a back order of white pants, but that's okay. Yeah, these are it. They look really great. We're super thankful for you guys to support us and financially, but also, just in moral support as well. I super appreciate it. I know these kids all super appreciate it, and these kids came in a last minute deal here today. So they were super thankful, and they were super excited for the trip. We only leave in 30 days. No one's counting. If you have any questions for them, I'm sure they'd take it, but I just wanted to say thanks.
Are there any questions from board members?
Are they comfortable?
They're warm. Yeah. Right now. They adjust. Yeah, big button. Big buckle.
That was an awesome presentation, you guys. It was so cool.
Were you surprised?
Yes.
Yes.
I tried to be as sneaky as possible, but I don't know if it worked or not, but oh well.
I did, yeah.
All right, shall we?
Thank you so very much.
Thank you guys. Thank you.
They've done a great job at all the marching competitions this year as well, too. Item B, board member meeting legislative report. Any board member have anything you want to report on, report out? Andy? That was Duck Duck Goose.
It's a rental. So I attended the WASB Effective Legislative Advocacy Workshop in Tomahawk a couple of weeks ago. And I got this nice toolkit. If anybody wants to look at it, I'll be happy to share it. Lots of good information on how to advocate, but I think the two big takeaways that I thought were important to our board is relationships with legislators would be number one. And I know that several of you were endorsed by our state assembly person, and I think several people here on the board have a great relationship with Mary Falkowski, and so that's good when it comes to advocating. And what was the other one? Oh, yeah, that we're all elected officials, and when we're advocating with legislators, they realize that we have been elected by our constituents, and hopefully what we're advocating for speaks for our constituency. And then along those lines, I know that in the Finance Committee, that there's been a little talk about a referendum, that might, operational referendum might be needed because we're going to hit the financial cliff in a couple years. So I just looked at CISA 9 districts that have run a referendum since I did April of 2020 to the present. And of the districts that are at the minimum levy limit, like we are, 10,000 people, $10,000, 2/3 of them have failed their referendums. So, the ones that have a higher levy limit do a much better job at passing referendums, and I think that's true statewide, and if I get around to it, I might look at all state referendums to see if that holds true, that when we have a low levy limit, we're not going to be very likely to pass a referendum. And so Okay.
Would it be possible, Andy, for you to take that, that you brought from the meeting and give to Mary Kay, and she can scan it and send it to all the board members? The packet of information? Not copy it for everybody, but just scan it and email it to everybody.
Sure.
Yes, that'd be good, so that way everybody can get that information. And if you have questions about that information that Mary Kay will be sending, just give Andy Mary a call, since he was present there at the meeting, and he'll be glad to walk you through any information there. Any other members have anything to speak about legislative reports? Okay, moving along to item C, the Wings presentation. I believe Mrs. Maddock will be.
All right, so we do have a presentation up there, but before we get started, if you are here for the Wings presentation, Jocelyn, you can wait a little bit. Okay. All right, my name's Anita Maddock, Associate Principal.
Amanda Morris, School Social Worker.
Megan Murphy, School Psychologist.
Kelly Levesque, one of the school counselors.
So before we jump into our presentation, I would like to personally thank all of you, because this program would not be thriving without these wonderful ladies, so thank you. And with that being said, we do have a student that will speak a little bit later. We have a few videos, and there are some, I don't know, some valuable information up there. I don't know if you guys have a good view. Can everybody see that all right? If not, maybe come back here so you can see the big screen. So last winter we came to you and we presented this Wings program. We really wanted to move our alternative education program to campus, and now we're here to share out on how it is going. So again, Wings stands for willpower, integrity, non-traditional, goal-orientated, and success. Thanks, Megan. Mr. Racine, will you go to the next slide, please? Thank you. Okay, so these are 6 elements that we look for each and every day when we're with our students in the Wings program. And number 6 is probably why we're here today. We're creating something different for each student in this program, but they still obtain their diploma. So 1 through 5, we're looking forward to doing with every student all of the time. But number 6 is why we're here today presenting. So I'll give you a couple more seconds to look through those. All right, thanks, Dustin. Okay, some positive happenings. So the girls were talking about Captain Poultry Week. So these are our camo outfits here, and we voted ourselves most or least likely to ever wear camo. So we made sure to take a picture of ourselves wearing camo together. So last school year, 21-22, we were out at North Central Technical College, and our student attendance was at about 70%. Now that we've moved it on campus, our attendance rate is up to 84%. And for each student to graduate in the Wings program, they have to have a 90% attendance rate. So those students that are not meeting that attendance rate are making up time, staying after, maybe staying a full day, maybe working through lunch. It's flexible, but we're trying to get that up to obviously 100%, but 90% in order for them to graduate. So if you move down to that second paragraph, we've completed over 85 credits already this quarter, which is an average of 4.5 per student, which is pretty remarkable in the time that we've been in class already.
That is just the first quarter?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right, so we will hear from Owen first. Maybe you can make it big for us.
Hi, Owen. Can you tell me why the Wings program is important to you?
It's very important to me because it helps me succeed my goals and get to where I need to be before graduation.
And what motivates you to come in every day and work towards your graduation?
It would have to be the teachers and the environment of the room. It's less stressful and there's more help and they actually work with us.
And how have you improved during your time in the Wings program?
I've improved with stress, getting work done on time, and a lot of other good things.
And why do you think that the Wings program works for you?
It works for me because I get stressed when I'm in a lot of people, and when I need help, that's more one-on-one help. I get the help that I need.
All right, well, thanks for sharing.
No problem.
His buddies were next to him, laughing as he's recording, so he did a very nice job.
Okay, Brayden, why is the Wings program important to you?
Well, I think it's very important because it's a good way to get your credits back from the credit from like the class you have not done well in, and it's a lot easier because you get the help that you need.
Logan, what motivates you to come in every day and work towards graduation?
How friendly everybody is in the room and how everybody just gets along, and you can always come in here and expect nice attitudes.
Okay, and how have you improved during your time in the Wings program?
I definitely found myself focusing more on my work, like not so actively in class.
Brayden, why would you say the Wings program has worked so well for you?
Well, it's worked well for me because everybody just keeps a positive attitude, and it's so much easier because I have work release in the morning, so I can go to work. And the program that I go through, every 100 credits, or every 100 hours is a credit, so I can put all my hours for making my credits back too, which helps a lot. It's a really flexible schedule, I would say.
Great. All right, well, thank you, guys.
Wow, of course.
All right, I'll pass the mic to Mrs. Levesque in just a moment, but here are 3 good examples. So Owen was the first one we listened to. He takes classes in the morning, and then he attends our program in the afternoon. So he has Phi-Ed and some other courses that are elective-based that he takes in the morning. Brayden will work in the morning, and then he comes to school in the afternoon. If he does not work in the morning, then he comes here all day. And then the last one was Logan, and he just strictly comes in the afternoon. And works after school. So 3 totally different students with very, very different plans. So here is Kelly's slide.
I'll try not to read them all. Hopefully you guys are reading as I'm yakking at you. Short and sweet, they feel more comfortable when they are there. That calming voice you heard interviewing them was Julie Samolinsky, so shout out to her. She's rocking it in that room. So that making them feel at home, that those teachers are awesome in there. They're very calming. The 4.5 credits doesn't sound like a lot until you realize, if those of you who are not pros, at the high school credit total, most kids carry 7 in a full year. So they are rocking 4.5 and a quarter. So they're catching up very fast. So I just want to throw that in there for you. So the quotes are awesome. Yeah. I think we got more. Give me another one. All right. All right. Yeah, the attendance has improved. So looking at that 84%, you might be cringing a little bit, but the ones that are bringing it down are usually a select few. So most of those kids are rocking the 90%. So shout out to those kiddos. They're doing great. Okay. Let's see. Relaxed environment. Okay, the camel was for the pump up for Captain Paltry, so I don't think Tyler or Mr. Lorenz necessarily wears the camel all day long. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, but they're very calming to the kids in there. It's awesome. Which other one? Okay, I'm good with that. We'll let Tucker go. Is that where we're going? Yeah. Or is anybody else?
So I work in the Wings room every Wednesday. I am in there and I do a check-in with each and every student. We have a lot of students who are have food insecurities, shelter needs, clothing needs, job, all of those things. So I check in every Wednesday. I meet with each of the children. We identify some goals, get some resources if it's needed. One thing that I'm really focusing on with a lot of the students right now is what's coming after high school. So I have first brought in FSAT, so it's food share employment training. And so that's for families that are on food share that can help the student get closed for interviews. It can help them get job interviews. It can assist in just a number of things with the end goal being employment. So we are working with Offset. I have them coming in once a month. With the holidays and things like that, it's been a little wishy-washy, but we'll be more consistent with that here after winter break. And then most recently, we have quite a number of students that are interested in CDL work. So I reached out to Carl's Transport, and honestly, it was probably one of the best days of my job there. We went and they set aside, I believe it was 3 hours for us, and I took 4 students. Owen was sick that day, so I would have had 5. Took 4 students, and they did their presentation. We went into the simulators. I didn't know, but we ended up in semis. I offered to keep my feet on the ground, and they told me no, so I was also in semis with some of our students. And it was amazing for our students to just see it's something in our community. They don't have to go away if they don't want to. And Carl's is nationally known for their programs, so it's a great opportunity for our students. And we actually have one that will be starting class in February.
Nice.
So that was very exciting. They tried to get me to drive, but I was in these wedges and I declined.
So
Were
thank
you on the simulator?
No,
No.
I was emotionally supporting our students
Gotcha.
on the simulators.
Gotcha.
Well, thank you. Jesselyn, would you join me down here, please?
I don't think I need the microphone, I'm pretty loud.
Unfortunately, we do have to use the microphone for people at home to hear.
Oh, this is.
Yeah,
It's live.
it's live. You got it. We have
All right,
confidence.
so this is Jesselyn with 2 S's and 2 N's. So she is here live and in person, so I'm hoping you will have some questions for her. We're going to start with the same, the same questions Mrs. Samolinsky asked the other students. Why is the WINGS program important to you?
Okay, ask again, please.
Why is the WINGS program important to you?
The WINGS program is important to me because it provides me a sense of a new start and a sense of stability.
What motivates you to come in every day?
It motivates me, the program motivates me to come in every day to help me graduate, and it's like a sense of like everyone cares, so you want to, and it's not like I have to, like I want to. So there's that, yeah.
All right, so what personally has improved with you since you've started within the WINGS program?
Overall, my attendance, my behavior, and my credits have all improved hugely with me being through WINGS.
All right, last one. Why does the WINGS program personally work for you?
The program personally works for me because the teacher and Miss Moore actually care and they help and they want to see you graduate, and it's not like just do this work because I'm telling you, it's do this work so I can help you succeed. Okay.
Awesome. Any questions you have for Jesselyn? Give her one easy one, just one easy one.
You want to walk us through your morning or your afternoon, like, or what subjects you're working on?
Well, I go to the WINGS in the morning and then I leave at 1:30 for work release. So I do have 2 classes. I have a study hall 5th hour, and then I have art 6th hour, and then I leave the building. As of right now, most of my classes are online because I am a junior and have classes that I do need to take as of this year. So I am on Odyssey-ware with other Miss Moore, and not that one. And then through Mr. Lorenz, Edmentum. And through Edmentum, I am currently working on Algebra 2. And I think that is all I'm working on right now is with that class. And I am also done with semester 1 of history as of today. And I am 75% complete with psych, also as of today. Is that it?
Great job, Jesselyn.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is Mr. Lorenz. He is our wings instructor. He lives in 3 Lakes and has 2 young kids, and his wife is a busy pharmacist, so she was working tonight, and he could not be here. But we did record something, so we'll end with this, and thank you for your time tonight.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tyler Lorenz. I am the Wings program teacher. Also the 11th and 12th grade alternative education teacher for the Antigo School District. As many of you may know, this is my first year within the district, and I would just like to say thank you once again for a great opportunity, and for also to the administration and staff and students for the warm welcome. It's been a great start to the school year, so I cannot thank you enough. At this time, I just wanted to give you a little update as far as how the Wings program has been going. This year, we've been off to an amazing start for the 2022-2023 school year. For those of you that are not familiar with the Wings program, it was a program that was formerly known as Partners that was at a off-site location at NTC. It was decided for the best interest of our students to bring that program back to our Antigo High School campus. And so far, we have had a tremendous amount of growth within those students that are involved. Currently, we have 26 students enrolled in the program. And of those 26 students, we've seen attendance rates increase from 70% off campus to just under 85% on campus, which is a huge increase within our students. Also, since the beginning of the school year on September 1, we have seen our students complete over 85 credits, so averaging about 4.5 credits that have been recovered per student. And some students have obviously exceeded that, and some have achieved a little less than that, but the average would be 4.5 credits to this point. We've had 3 students complete the program, meaning that they have earned all credits necessary to graduate from the school district of Antigo. They've met all of the criteria to graduate with a Antigo High School diploma, along with meeting the requirements from the state, which has been amazing. Those students have seen kind of the light at the end of the tunnel and have worked extremely hard to get to that point. They've also set up themselves up for success for down the road, being able to take additional classes, enrolling in the work program, apprenticeships, and also post-secondary education, which is fantastic when you're talking in terms of students that have been credit deficient. Attendance has been great, attitude, overall morale of students. I've shared some answers to questions that from our students directly that have been attached to this presentation, so I'm hoping that you had a chance to look at those. Mental health has been on a steady incline with our students, which is ultimately the most important thing, to make sure that our students are feeling good about themselves and proving that they have a purpose with life. So a few things that I'd like to mention before I let you go and continue on your meeting is I would like to give a large thank you to Anita Maddock, Amanda Moore, Kelly Levesque, Megan Murphy, and Julie Samolinski for their involvement, advocation, and overall support of the Wings program. If it was not for them and these wonderful people that they are, I believe that the program would not have the success that it's had. They truly make it an enjoyable experience. They've worked tirelessly and very hard to bring this program back. And with your blessing as a board, they've had that opportunity to give our alternative ed students a fighting chance at a successful and happy life. So they do a tremendous job here at the district. I want to recognize their efforts because they make my life and my job that much more enjoyable each day. And I truly look forward to coming to work every day because of the people and the amazing students that we have here at the district. So to you ladies, thank you. And thank you for the others that are involved that I did not mention. So many people to thank, but we are off to a great start. I'm forever grateful and appreciative of those people and for who they are and the efforts that they make for the students of the Antigo School District. I believe that every student and every child deserves a quality education, and sometimes an alternative education plan is what's needed to meet their individual needs and to ensure that no student is left behind. So I would like to thank you for your time and consideration, and to share with you as a board that I hope you recognize and appreciate those people as much as I do. Thank you for your time.
And that is our last slide. Any questions you may have for us?
Go ahead, Andrew.
Good evening.
I know when we talked about bringing the Wings program back to the high school, there were some concerns with kids didn't want to be here like in the first place possibly, and whether it be more behavioral issues or things of that nature that come up by bringing the program back to this location. Have you found that, or?
I think I like that.
Well, I'll allow you, Ms. Jessup.
Personally, I've been to NTC, not for schooling or anything, but the area is a lot bigger, and I guess you could say the people there are older, and here you know everybody or know around everybody because you've gone to school with them for so long. So when you see them in the halls, it's a friendly face. When you walk in for the first day into the Wings and you see people you know, and you're like, okay, this isn't gonna be as bad. And I personally think that we have definitely had better attendance. Like, never mind, I'm not gonna say that. But we all really appreciate Mr. Lorenz and what Miss S is doing. And you too, I guess. And we all just like, the first few days might have been a little rough, but once we got to know them, and Mr. Lorenz actually shared his life story with us one of the first days of school. So it was just easier to connect with him, and it just made it easier for everybody to want to come. And yeah, everybody has behavioral problems once in a while, but I honestly think that even me personally, I had a rough patch a few weeks ago, and Mr. Lorenz and Miss Maddock actually, and Miss Wiss sat me down and we all talked, and I think ever since that, I've just been like excelling. So sometimes it just takes like the communication, I guess. I don't know. I personally think that it's been a lot better.
Okay, thank you.
I will say too, we worked really hard on the environment within the room. I have been working with the area food pantry, so we were able to have food within the room for our students to have at any point during the day. Bless Miss Samolinsky, she takes anything home that needs to be cooked, and she brings in meals out of the food that we get from the food pantry. We've just really worked to make the environment as a whole very welcoming. We do have a specific door that they come in, so if they do not go into general classes either half of the day, they buzz in, we let them in a door, and they come right into the classroom. I did want to share another comment that a student had made to me. So when Mr. Lorenz was gone on a hunting trip recently, I was his sub. So I was in the Wings classroom for the week. And so it gave me a good chance just to see it play out, because when I'm there, I'm just calling students in. We're just meeting, I'm not really in the classroom setting. And I had one student come up to me and say, Miss Moore, and this is a student that we've had some struggles with. He says, you know what, Miss Moore? Mr. Lorenz is the only man that has ever held me accountable for my behaviors, and for that, I appreciate him. And that speaks volumes to just the environment that we have been working to create within that classroom.
People have been asking me about Wings all throughout this school year, and my response to them is, I'm the most disruptive thing in that room when I walk in. Because I'm the one checking in on students, and I'm actually interrupting their work. Most of the time, you could hear a pin drop quiet as they're working. Maybe there's a little side conversation, or one of the students is working with Mr. Lorenz or Miss Samolinsky, but most of the time I'm like, hey, how's it going? And I'm like, I am the most disruptive thing. in here right now. So when we talk about behavior, when we talk about attendance, all those other things, I can't even believe how great it's going. And I helped create it.
Ms. Maddox, have we had any behavior referrals directly out of the group? I didn't think so.
That's awesome.
Are there any other questions?
I don't have a question, I'll just share feedback. A lot of positive thoughts and feedback has been shared by a variety of professionals in the community. So I just wanted to share that too, and actually students as well. So a lot of positive feedback and momentum. Keep it up. That's awesome.
Sure, Angie?
I have one more. So we offer this starting at what grade? Is it junior?
Junior.
Okay. Is there a way that we could expand the program to lower grades so that the kids, because not all kids, can do well in the setting of going from classroom to classroom to classroom to classroom and all the distractions?
Yeah, good question. So she's asking if we could have something like this at younger ages. So that was our hope at the start of the school year. We did have another alternative teacher that was hired that ended up resigning a couple weeks in, a couple months in, whatever it was at that point. So that was our hope. We have some interviews on Wednesday. So hopefully we will get that up and running for our 8th, 9th, and 10th graders.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. Great work, everyone.
Thank you.
No other questions? Thank you very much, Mrs. Maddock, and all the team that makes this happen. But especially thank you, Jesslyn, for coming. You did a great job presenting, and so proud of you. Keep up the great work. Okay, moving on to item D, the district report card. I will turn it over to Dr. Sprague.
Okay, good evening. You all have every document related to this year's release of the report cards in board docs. Also, each family received these electronically for each of their students in our school district, and the board also received them. They're posted on our website as well. So I won't go through each one. Hopefully you've had some opportunity to take a look at the information. Instead, I would like to highlight and begin with some contextual information. So the National Assessment of Educational Progress, or NAEP, is not what we tested on, just to be clear. But that is another national standardized test that was given to 4th and 8th graders. And in the nation, those scores were the lowest, or dropped the most, I should say, in both math and reading, 4th and 8th grade, since its inception in 1990. So, and we knew that prior to the release of our state report cards. So there was this black cloud over, really, I would say, the entire state, thinking, we know coming off the pandemic, scores are likely to be down. And we had that one data point to kick us off. Well, Wisconsin actually did not suffer as much as the rest of the nation, and their scores didn't go down. Wisconsin's 4th and 8th grade scores actually went up. So, okay, that's pretty good news. Then comes the release of our state report cards. 71% of the state's districts stayed in the same category as they did the previous year, and Antigo is one of those. Our score went up, but only by 0.7. So we stayed in the same category as a district, which is, it's called meeting few expectations. 84 districts, or 22%, went down in the state, an entire category. That is very significant, and I'd be lying if I, well, you already know if you've read the paper or the letter that went home with these scores. We so desperately, I would say, have been working to change that trend line, and we did it. For the first time in 6 years, we went up. Not significantly, but we went up on the heels of a pandemic. And when 25% of the districts went down, that is reason for celebration. Only 6% of districts improved a category, 6%. So that being said, we do have some celebrations, even though we have so much work left to do. By no means are we home free. But the companion pieces that you have attached in board docs and also were sent home to our families and on the website, they tell the rest of the story, as one might say. So there are really two considerations. One is the local report card, and that is a template. You might remember the term redefining ready. So that is an avenue by which we can look at other things that our students have accomplished that tell a more comprehensive picture. Because as you know, the report card is largely based on a standardized test, either the forward exam for grades 3 through 8, the ACT Aspire, which has a different name now, and the ACT. So the local report cards led by Amy Doms, those are looking at measures unique to each school, although some celebrations were the same at our elementary schools, for example. And then also, a piece that we're really proud of is that companion piece that we sent out to each family, and you also have in board docs. And it tells a more comprehensive story about our scores. So I have my entire admin team here tonight if you have any questions. I'll give you just one example, and it's from West Elementary, and then all 3 elementaries. So West Elementary, if you look at their score, and I know Jamie quoted my alarm in the paper, my initial alarm. When you look at that score, you might think, what's happening at West Elementary? You know, we're not doing well. When just the opposite is true. They had more students proficient on that 3rd grade test, remember, one test, more students proficient in both math and reading than ever before. But that one test has a 3-year rolling average, and because we didn't do well in 2021, those 15 kids or whoever took it, that score is going to drag us down until it moves chronologically its way out of that average. So even though there was so much improvement, West score, our category did not change. But when you look at grades 3 to 4, and this is what excites me more than I can even tell you, grades 3 to 4, and Dr. Deep, you were one who had asked about this longitudinal data. So this is how we're scoring in grade 3 in math and reading. But then take a look in grade 4. We had, I think it was 18%, excuse me, have it written here somewhere. I have it. Oh, would you? Thank you, Rachel. She will tell us just how much we improved percentage-wise in proficiency.
That one year that we all talk about, where we barely even had enough students to get a score, so we were 11% proficient. When they moved up to 4th grade, they hit 34% proficient. And then with math, we were at 7% proficient, and the next year's 4th graders, they grew to 49% proficient. So they're doing the right thing. That year that...
If you go to the mic, please.
That year that we did have that 2021 I had 2 brand new teachers proctoring the forward exam. One was coming from out of state, had never even seen the exam before. I'm not making excuses for it. I just want you to know that was 24 little kiddos that took that exam, and now as 4th graders, they're able to show you what they can really do. So if 4th grade was still at West, I think my report card would look very different this year. So I think you should, take some pride that the transition from third to fourth that we've talked about has been sometimes challenging from our students, is not necessarily the truth when you look at the data. Any questions on that?
Thank you, Rachel. In that companion piece, we also celebrated other highlights. We pointed out at least one from each school. Well, I'm looking for it here in my pile. The high school, we have more students taking dual credit courses by just a very significant margin over the state average.
Julie, are you going to mention the growth scores? Just to compare like the middle school to the elementary schools so we
Yes, yes. In fact, I'll do that right now. So this is the companion piece I'm talking about, and Dustin has it on the screen. So what JD's referencing is on page 7. As you all board members know by now, we don't get a growth score at the elementary school because our configuration ends at grade 3. DPI assures me and has repeatedly that is not, we are not penalized because of that. However, it does mean that one test, again, that third graders take counts as 75% of that school's score. The other percent is called, 25% is called on track to graduation. So it's things like attendance. So that means the stakes are very high there, but a growth score does not average in at all. So it does, though, at the 2 secondary schools. So dual credit was a big celebration at the high school. Middle school had 95%. We scored as well at the middle school as 95% or of all other districts as well or better than 95% in on track to graduation. And then East Elementary exceeded the state average of proficient levels for both reading and math. And of course, as Rachel just shared on behalf of all 3 elementary schools, North, East, and West, the number of students, percentage of students proficient in reading and math significantly higher from grades 3 to 4. Those are our greatest celebrations. Do we have work to do? Yes. So this is not a celebration to the point where we know our work here is done, not by a long shot, but I can't tell you how affirming it is to have the work that the staff has been doing year after year. When you change that trend line, that's what we've been waiting for. And honestly, it came a year earlier than even I was hoping for. Just sends a message that we do know what we're doing and we're on the right track. So. And with that, we'd be happy to answer questions, any one of us here.
Are there any board members that have questions on the district report card? Andy?
Yeah, so, you know, I think there's several board members here who have been concerned about our reading program at the elementary level. You know, and I just listened to a podcast series about our reading program that wasn't too flattering. Do you think we've made enough changes or supplements to that reading program, or are we on track to get a different one, something that would be more suited to Anago? And
So we have supplemented the program with some early literacy programs at the 4K and K level, but we are in the process of reviewing the resources right now. So we established our ELA beliefs as a 4K7 team, and we are meeting again on our next PD day. There's a team that they could self-select if they want to be a part of the process, where we will look at other resources and then score them, including our own that we currently have and what we'd like to make as a decision bringing forward at the end of spring in 2023. So we're in process of doing that right now.
Amy, tell me the name of our phonics program again.
We have Fontes and Pinnell phonics.
Okay. What's the Wiley?
Blevins.
Yes.
That's a foundation, science of reading resource and speaker, and he's heavy in the science of reading. And we have sent almost all of our K through 2 and some third grade teachers to science of reading training with Foundations of Literacy with Amy McGovern through CISA 9. So they have that supplementary knowledge as well as some of the resources in their hands too.
But so the Wyverly, it's not a scope and sequence of letters and sounds, so to speak?
They do have an opportunity for a resource that is by grade level, if you'd like to say, but we don't currently have that in everybody's hands. We also have the 95% group at the 4K and K level, which is to help with some of that early literacy work that you might have seen a few years ago, where we were noticing that our students were not able to rhyme, sound out. So it's really focusing on the oral language, hearing and speaking some of those initial sounds. But it's an ever-evolving process. Like Rachel just shared with me another article to learn a little bit more about early literacy and what it might mean for certain students. We all need different things based on our backgrounds and what we have. So, but we are going through the process right now. It is a lengthy process, so it'll be similar to the one that we did last year with science, social studies, and ELA for the high school.
We were just going to say, if we're going to spend $250,000 on something, I'd rather buy a reading program than Windows, you know, unless we have money for both, Tim.
We have money earmarked for both, I believe.
So Amy, do you, you have staff, our staff looking at different reading programs, but have you gone to other districts that have similar demographics to us and looked at what they're doing and how they're doing, how it's serving them?
So we have a couple resources we can use in selecting which ones we'd like to review. So you can use Ed Reports, and they greenlight resources that meet really high criteria for meeting different literacy expectations. There's also a map in the state of Wisconsin where you can put in filtered information, like you're saying, similar to our demographics, similar to our school size, and they will tell you what they're using for their curriculum and their resources as well. So we can do that as well. And I invited any of the people as that part of that group, if they would like to talk to people that they know, other teachers, and then at the next meeting, we're bringing forward resources that they'd like to look at and review based on what they know as professionals.
Are you going to bother them into listening to Sold a Story?
I'm not going to require additional things, no. The reviewing of the resource is pretty hefty, so I'll leave that as the main priority for our time.
How many different ones are you guys looking at so far?
That's yet to be determined.
Okay.
So if you think you're going to get to the selection process by spring of 2023, when would we implement a new reading program?
Potentially in the fall of 2023, similar to the timeline that we had this year for the resources that we purchased last summer, it happened to be, and then into the fall.
Okay.
I think you should look at the Amplified Core Knowledge Language Arts.
That may be on the list. We already have we have a list prepared, but we also want to hear from our staff as well.
I like, Amy, your response, that is to be determined.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Are there any other questions from board members?
Julie, Dr. Sprague, sorry. Can you talk a little bit more about the learning loss as a result of COVID-19 pandemic? It seems very broad. This board has had a lot of discussions in making determinations on our COVID response in the district, assuring it would not impact academic achievement. I'm curious on at the state level, nationwide, when we say learning loss as a result of COVID-19, what specifically are we noting when we say that, and in what ways did it impact learning loss?
So that term has become widely accepted both statewide and nationally. And if I'm giving you my definition, which I am, it would just be the disruption in our schedule. So schools like ours were closed for a while when we return then, it was 4 days a week. We had a remote option. So doing things differently than we had been used to, and not with that same consistency that students were expecting. So I actually, knowing how that could be a question, I wanted to be very careful, and the state and DPI give us templates, talking points about the report cards and things, and they really were riddled with COVID as not an excuse, but as like the great interrupter. And one reason that potentially 25% of our districts went down an entire category. We didn't really look at it that way. Instead, yes, I did use that terminology, but it was more about that's behind us. Now we're getting back into our routine, and students are in person full-time again, unless they choose a different alternative. And so we want to regain that momentum.
Oh, and I support positive momentum and moving forward. It's a pretty broad statement. And
It is, yeah.
We also, each individual district had made their own decisions on how to respond after the shutdown, and so that's why I'm curious, because I think at a state and national level, defining what that means and the ways in which learning loss occurred as a result of responses to COVID. We always look at our decisions and we can learn from history, and so I'm just very curious on what that is, and maybe there's a lot of things that we could learn from it, pros and cons, but it just seems very broad and not well defined.
And I almost feel, Jill, that's by design, because it might mean something different, right, to different districts. So.
I have a question for Mr. Rogers. So I'm looking at the local report card here, and you got about 450 kids in co-curriculars, which is about half of the kids
13. So some of the elements that were consistent were the research-based ones around academics or other readiness factors for each level. So there were some things, but then it was important to include specific points of pride that each school might have had that they wanted to showcase as well. So I hear you, and we can work on that, but there are some things, they're not cookie cutter schools. They have their own unique identities too, and we want them to be able to showcase some of their highlights too.
I saw that 100% of the staff look forward to coming each day, and I thought, wow, is that true in the other two schools or not? Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Any other questions or comments for the district report card? Yes, Angie?
So to kind of piggyback off of what Andy was saying earlier, so do we look to any other districts or schools that are significantly exceeding expectations? Because there is 23 schools on the DPI's list that are significantly exceeding expectations, and of those are 13 elementary schools. So are we reaching out to them to see what they're doing, what their best practices are? They're not all, I mean, there's some that are down, between Milwaukee and Madison and stuff, so, but then there's also some that are in northern Wisconsin. There's North Lakeland Elementary, which is in Manitowish Waters, Lake Country, which is just west of Chippewa Falls. So I think that might be something that would be.
Can you move the mic a little closer? Just
Oh, that's a first. Okay.
So if some of you don't know my background, I worked in DC Everest as both a classroom teacher and a reading specialist, and I worked in Tomahawk as a reading specialist as well, and then I came here. And when I came here, you had just adopted the units of study, and I was so excited because I had seen it work in DC Everest. I had seen it work in Tomahawk. I knew it intimately, and I thought, boy, this is gonna be a piece of cake over here. I know this program. I can help coach these teachers. But I will tell you that this demographic here is very, very different than those two districts that I worked at before. Having a population that is over 70% below the poverty line brings its own set of challenges that I had no idea it was gonna bring. Food insecurities, housing insecurities, trauma, incarceration, foster families. Like, we deal with so much on a daily basis before we can even get to those academics. And until you are in the schools working intimately with those students every single day, you really have no idea. And I had no idea coming here. I was coming here with these rose-colored glasses, and boy, did I get a reality check. Now, the work is extremely rewarding, and I agree with you, Angie. We should look to those districts who are exceeding expectations as long as their demographics match ours. There are schools that are 90-90-90 schools. They have 90% poverty rate, 90% students of color, 90% proficient in advanced. So yes, I do agree with you, but looking to North Lakeland, that's a completely different population than ours. So they may even have a resource that we have. It's not gonna work here. We have students coming to us that need so much more structured literacy practices than the traditional literacy practices that we see in some other districts. That's just what I've seen working in 3 very different communities, very close together.
Amy, when you said you could have this state map and plug things in, can you plug in food insecurity and incarceration?
I don't know that off the top of my head. I would not think incarceration, but there might be a potential for the free and reduced lunch similarities. I would have to get back to you on that.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Angie, go ahead.
So can somebody tell me what year we closed our country schools? I don't know what year that was.
I'm looking at Tim for this answer.
Andy says it's 5 years ago, so is that,
Julie's first year here?
2018-19 was their last year they were open.
okay. So when we close the schools, I looked at the numbers of our scores since 2012, 2013 as a whole, and we significantly dropped off in 2018. And so I'm just wondering, like, is there, I mean, we all know that it's better to have the lower teacher to student ratios, but like, is this affecting our outcomes with this score as well?
Theoretically, it should not, because you'd have the same students testing. So when those schools closed, the students came in, but they're still required to take the test, just on behalf of a different school.
Right.
So, but as Jamie and I talked, when Pleasant View was open, for example, they didn't have a poverty rate to speak of. They didn't have any diversity. So it was a very homogeneous group of students. Doesn't mean that it wasn't complex and the work wasn't important, but it wasn't nearly what we have today. So in theory, though, again, you have the same students testing, just on behalf of a different school.
Right, but what I'm trying to say is that by moving those kids from the country schools to, the city schools, now we have a higher student to teacher ratio.
Not necessarily, no. We still enjoy very comfortable student-teacher ratios. We had some small sections then, certainly, but we still do now.
So you're saying that I don't know what our average third grade, maybe Donna, you can speak to us, how many are average students do you have in your classes?
Well, specifically for third grade, we have 3 sections, so our numbers are quite low. We actually have probably 17 is our average in third grade. Now, in second grade, we only have 2 sections, and those numbers are higher at 22, which, again, 22 is not that high, but still higher than 17. One thing I was going to comment about when we closed the rural schools, that's also when we moved to the 4th grade and 5th grade, so that's also when we lost the growth scores.
Okay.
The other thing, Angie, that, I don't know, am I breaking the rules now?
No, you're fine, go ahead.
We, our North, go back and look at the North report cards over the last 10 years. That was our best phonics school. And when we bought Lucy Calkins, we dumped it. And then our score went down, down, down. So that school, I think if I remember correctly, was often exceeding expectations. And then we did that to ourselves.
Right, so you need to make sure that we pick a very high-quality reading program. Yes, I totally agree with that.
And one other thing I just want to mention is that if you go back, probably when those schools were closing, our poverty rate in the community was much lower. Our school poverty rate was in the 40s or 50s, as I recall, and now we're in the 70s.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
To piggyback on JD with talking about scores, I do just want to bring a few things to light that hasn't been discussed, and that is when Jill Underley was elected as the state superintendent in 2020 and 2021, the accountability score range actually changed that year. In 2018 and 2019, the lowest fails to meet expectations was 0 to 52.9, and then it changed to 0 to 47.9. So Jill Underley, and I've got a letter here if you guys want to read this, the board, I've got copies here. It did change, and it affected a lot of schools where they stood on the accountability score range. I know there are those that don't like to hear the levels of I'm in first place, I'm in last place. But that's part of life. Not everybody can be in first, not everybody will be in last. There's always those middle people that are in between. So I did go back 5 years and looked at our scores, and cumulative, if you average all of our scores for 5 years, we would be at 61.6, which under the new accountability score range, that would be meeting expectations. That's where we would be if we average all those 5 years together. But interestingly, in 2016 and 17, if you look again at the #1 school and the 420th school, our range was 350 for those that pay attention to that. The very next year, in 2017-18, we was at 280 with a score of 71.6, and that would have been under the old accountability score range. And then we look at 2018 and 19, we dropped to 409 with a score of 60.6. The next year, we were closed because of COVID. No tests were done. And then 2020, 2021, we dropped to 414 of a score of 53.7. And that would have been under the new accountability score range that Dr. Underlay and DPI lowered the scores down. And the reason of them lowering the scores down, so it has been said across legislatures, is the fact that they didn't want too many schools to be on the failing side. Now, that's debatable for another time and another place. And then we look at this year, we're at 54.4 at a rank of 413 out of 420. I applaud all of our small successes, because a lot of times, Dr. Sprague, it takes small successes that add up to become a larger success over time. But I just wanted to bring those numbers of the ratings, and I do have copies, if the board wants them, of all the schools of the 5 years. If you want the copies, I'll be glad to give them to you, where it shows you what the #1 school is, and then what the last school score is from all of these years, from 2016, 2017, all the way to our current 2021, 2022 school year. We do have a lot of hard work, and I'm thankful that we have a lot of dedicated teachers. We have a lot of dedicated principals and administrators that are willing to put the work in and pay the sacrifice. I was thankful to hear in the WINGS program, and be sure, Mr. Rogers, to let them know this, that the student that said they were thankful that the teacher held them accountable for their actions. I believe that we need to do a little bit more of that as well, and that would help overall too, because these kids that are going through this WINGS program, they're going up rather than staying mediocre or even falling down. So, keep in mind how all of this works. We don't like the rating. We may like the rating. That's not the issue, because everybody is rated. As you can see, you can find all this information on DPI's website. If anybody wants copies of any of this, you're free to have it. Does anybody else have anything to say? Yes, Angie.
So while,
Hold 1 second, Angie.
Yes.
There was another member that hasn't spoken that wanted to speak.
Okay, yep.
He was getting his microphone, Dr. Bartle. So hold your thought. Write your thought down.
Well, first of all, I want to congratulate East Elementary for meeting expectations. I want to compliment the middle school for meeting expectations and within 1.5 points of exceeding expectations. So I thought that should be said. Basically, what I'm going to go through is the district. It's a 10-page document on our district score. And where I'm going to is page, I believe, 5.
Dave, can you speak closer
Sure,
to the mic?
I'll get closer. No, I'm going to page 3 apparently. In
You're
our,
talking
Is this
about-
something that Dustin
So-
can put on the
Yeah.
screen for everybody to follow?
no, it's okay. You can find it at the website, and I'm just quoting the website. So our achievement score was 43.8, and then when you go out to the right side, and I've highlighted it, it says the district score was, this is for achievement, the district score was the same or higher than 4.5% of the districts in the state. I was pretty good at math, still am. And what that tells me is that where we rank is lower than 95.5% of the other districts in the state. On page 5 is the gross score. Ours was 50.8. According to DPI, this district score was the same or higher than 5.8 of districts in the state, 5.8%, which tells us 94.2% of other districts in the state scored higher than us. Our target group score was 41.2. This district score was the same or higher than 2.1% of districts in the state. That tells us that those schools that was, the other schools in the state, 97.9% of them did better with their target group. And then finally is on track for graduation, where we scored 76.9, but it says the district score was the same or higher than 4.2% of districts in the state, which tells us that our graduation rate, other districts, 95.8% did better than us. And then when you do the math for our score of 413 out of 420, our score is, we're 98.3% of the districts rank higher than us. It's very sad.
You know it's not meant to be a ranked system, right?
Oh, yeah, but they do it every year since it started.
Who, can I ask where you got this document?
DPI.
It's right off the DPI website. Julie, this is what I was, it's a 10-pager.
No, she asked where I
Yeah.
got my
I,
document
yeah,
from.
that I have, of course, it's uploaded, but.
Okay.
This is for the whole year, so this is the whole packet here. So that's 2021. As you can see, each year's together. You can take that. Are you done, Dr. Bardo?
I think so.
Okay. Angie, go ahead.
Well, I was just kind of echoing what Dave kind of just said. So there, while we want to, I totally understand wanting to celebrate our wins, and I totally agree with you that, it's the little steps that get us to the big goal, and we want to celebrate those little steps. However, we want to make sure that we're celebrating going in the correct direction, and we have only seven out of the entire state that are scored worse than Antigo. And we can come up with whatever excuse, we can come up with, whatever crutch we want to justify our score. But the point is that we've continuously gone down for a number of years. And you all, the Republic, those in the audience and listening at home, have elected school board members, in the faith that we're going to provide a quality education to our area our area youth. And so we have some hard conversations that need to be had, some very truthful conversations, and conversations that, you know, are uncomfortable at times. But that's what we need to do in order to fix this. You know, we can celebrate wins and we can celebrate, you know, progress and everything, but we still need to have these real, raw conversations. And it doesn't mean that, you know, somebody's like a bad person or we're judging them personally or anything like that. It just means we're trying to move the district in the, you know, forward, in the, I guess, in the right direction. And we're all human. We might make mistakes with what we decide, you know, vote on and stuff like that. But I think it's important to know that we really need to focus on getting back to academic achievement and not so much on the trauma side. I understand that that is a very important piece of it. However, it seems to me personally that we are very, very focused on that portion of it, and we've gotten away from the academic side of it. And I think we need to get back to that so that our, you know, we can get our students achieving where they need to be. And we're gonna have to have hard conversations and, you know, make hard decisions coming up in the future. And I think that, you know, as a parent, or even somebody moving here, I mean, why would somebody want to move here if we're ranked so low because that's what they look at? You know, why would I want my child going to a school that isn't performing the way it should? You know, I'm affecting their entire future. I think that we need to make it more of a priority than what we have been doing. With that, that's it.
It's at the top of our list. I'm not sure what hard decisions you're referencing, other than the staff. We really can't ask them to do any more.
No, our teachers are doing a great job. I just want to say that teachers are doing a phenomenal job, and I commend you for all the work that you're doing and everything that you're having to deal with day in and day out, from all the meetings to all the paperwork to, you know, the student behavioral issues to grading homework and everything. So I commend the teachers for all the hard work that they're doing.
So what hard decisions are you referencing, Angie?
I think we need to take a different direction with our district.
I don't know what that means.
I think that the direction that we're going now with some of our leadership is not the direction that we should be going. I think we need to make that decision and make it, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Not veer, but like, you know, we need to correct our direction. And that's going to mean making some hard decisions.
I will read between the lines and take it to mean you mean me, so.
Well, that's not what she's
Duly
saying,
noted.
so we cannot take that between the lines and read it that way. That is out of order. Any other questions?
So was her
or any
Facebook
other
and social
comments?
media posts ripping on our district when she should be.
Dr. Sprague, you are out of order right now. Would you please be silent? Are there any other questions or comments? JD.
Dave, will you explain the growth score portion of that again? I didn't, you to read that part again? It said 50% of, I don't know the math equations enough to know that. Does not having the growth scores in the elementary schools affect that number, or is it?
The score's the score. It just says 50.8. Do I know what that means? No, but that's I don't know what 50.8 actually means, but that's our score. But then what's over on the side that's highlighted says that our score of 50.8, the district score was the same or higher than 5.8% of districts.
Right, which is really bad. But Rachel just said, look, the 3rd to 4th grade score at West was great, but that's not included in that
Correct.
score.
Correct.
So that number would presumably be much higher if we had third and fourth grade in the same building. So that's why, it's somewhat the way we allocated the district 6 years ago, the board, it's our fault for the low report card score, regardless of what the students and the teachers are doing. And I mean, I feel bad for voting for it.
So, and I think, I'm starting to question myself, but JD, I think this is what we talked about in curriculum and instruction. So Amy, please correct me if I'm wrong, but that's why the elementaries and the middle school looked at, and Megan, I think you helped with this too, looked at the data, and we talked about this earlier, to see the growth from third to fourth grade in math and reading specifically, which did increase significantly, right? Because we can't reflect that, because the third graders then are transitioning to the middle school.
Correct. So it's just our state ranking is way worse than it would be if we had that. The achievement is still too low, I agree 100%, but the ranking itself would be higher.
So I think that's part of that data that we're trying to pull and utilize, is showing the growth that is actually occurring. So that way it's more transparent, because our scores look bad, right? That's not a reflection of the efforts being put in, but trying to reflect and communicate what the growth is occurring in our district, because it is strong, and taking that data and then utilizing it more strategically. So what you're sharing, and you've done very well, is sharing that's our barrier. With that building realignment, we can at least communicate and be very transparent that that growth is occurring from third to fourth, but it's not going to be reflected.
That's also true with having 8th grade in the high school, correct? So it's twice that we're missing out on that.
I don't know the answer to that.
Their growth score is reflected in the high school because they count in that metric, so.
From 4th to 8th.
Oh, from 4 to 8, right, it is not.
And so that'd be a question for us in general, is would we move everybody around again just to improve the ranking, even if it would have no actual effect on education? And that'd be
Again,
tough on
DPI
families.
DPI says it does not negatively impact us. The math that Dave was referencing with the number, it is extremely complex, but no matter how you slice it, yes, we're.
Well, just looking at it, saying no percentage, no growth score
Right.
on the elementary school, and it used to be like 60%, when we first got on the board, and it went to 0. So the part that's harder to get is now the majority of the score. We're beating it to death, but
Karina, wasn't you talking about that alignment a few meetings ago? You want to comment on that, please?
Yeah, so I mean, I think they said it really well when they said 24 kids took that test. So you are basing those report cards for the elementary school on at least one of them for 24 kids, right? Kids who, let's think back, if you're in third grade now, your kindergarten year when you're learning your basic phonics, your basic reading foundational skills, if you're not getting books read to you at home, you are not getting those skills at home. We know that kids who don't have a book read to them at night, they are going to be behind. If you aren't reading one book to your kid at home at night, every night, your kid's going to be behind. If those things aren't happening, our third graders were kindergartners during the middle of the shutdown. Like, those kids are going to have lagging skills. So 24 of those kids who, yeah, we're building those skills back, but it was kindergarten. It was first grade. It's when you're first learning how to put those sounds together. And if you try to relearn those things, that's hard. Think about when you learn a second language and you know all of the phonics and how the words go together for English, and now you're trying to use a second language. It's hard to put those things back together, right? You're looking at those words and or those letters, and you think, okay, this is what that sound makes. But nope, in this language, it looks different. So if you learn something at home with the peer parents doing the best job they could, but they were not teachers, and they also had work to do, and you also had siblings at home, and you were worried about having food, all of those things we know that happened, right? Those are now our third graders. That's how they learned all those basic foundational skills. So I think looking at that and thinking about that, is it an excuse? I don't know. It's the reality of what happened, and that's going to affect our scores. But if you look at our middle school score, and I can't explain all the math, I would probably need a whole nother master's degree to be able to do it, to be totally honest with you. But we are at 68.5%. We're meeting expectations, 3 stars in the middle school. We have good things going on. The report card doesn't give the full picture. And we can sit here and go back and forth about this report card, that report card, what we're not doing, all those different things, but I really think we need to start problem solving and looking at goal setting around those things. Okay, this is the problem right now. This is the goal. And Amy's doing a great job with that. Okay, we have a issue with our curriculum in the elementary school with our reading, and it's not meeting our needs, so we're going to adopt something differently. We're using a process for that. We're going through things so that we know it's going to work. We're not going to see changes instantaneously. You don't see that. It's going to build slowly over time. It's just the way it is. And I think looking at some of the other concerns, because we have concerns, absolutely, but building goals around those concerns when it comes to curriculum, when it comes to how our schools are running, how we're testing. If for some reason we would realign schools, which comes with its whole nother mess, like that's a big mess. But if we would do that, why we would do that, and not just for the report card, because frankly, then they're gonna change it, and it's not really gonna matter. So yes, these scores, they're not great, they're not great. But they also, like, guys, we do have good things going on, our kids are learning things, and we have system changes that need to be made. We can't change things to make a good report card score, because it's like exactly, you teach to the forward exam, they change it the next year. So it doesn't matter anyway. You had to teach to the standards, set up some system things, otherwise you're just chasing your tail. That's what I think.
Thank you, Trina. That's wonderful. Well put.
Andy, what were the districts that switched after they did what we did? They switched back.
Rhinelander switched to 4K3 and then switched back. And
Didn't they switch back within 2 years, 3 years?
they switched
It
back
was a
pretty
short
quickly.
time period, yeah.
And you might recall that I mentioned before that Rhinelander's a district that shoots for 50% in their fund balance. They pass their referendums. And they just have a higher, there's more money there. You can switch. Our district is, we went a long time without changing our curriculum because there was no money to do it. And, COVID has been a blessing for the Antigo School District because we've gotten a lot more money than other districts. And there's a lot of districts in the state right now that are really suffering because they didn't get that amount of money. And they have reached the financial cliff, and we'll be there in a couple years. So whatever we do, we want to do it wisely.
Absolutely.
Things are going to be tough up ahead.
Okay, I think we have discussed the report card enough to give Jamie a great report for the newspaper. Moving on to item E, the Finance Committee report. I'll look for a motion.
I move the board approve the minutes from the November 7th, 2022 Finance Committee meeting.
Second.
Motion's been made. Dr. Bardo, you can give the report.
Meeting was called at 6:02 p.m. Committee members present were Dr. Dave Bardo, Joe Maddock-Nelson, Dr. Noel Deep, and Tim Prenti. Other board members present were Angie Schreiber and Andy Mary. Administration present, Dr. Julie Sprague. Others present, Katie Estranga. No public comments. New business, budget update. Tim Prenti reported on the current year fiscal activity, ESSER funding, and evidence-based strategies. Prenti shared the ESSER budget and discussion followed regarding how to move forward when ESSER funding is no longer available and the possibility of an operational referendum for capital improvements. Future budget projections. Prenti briefed the committee on understanding general state aid, noting the district is in a good position at this time. He also provided a budgetary projection for the 23-24 school year, including 2 different scenarios. The meeting was adjourned, and our next meeting was scheduled for Monday, December 5th, 2022. Tim, based on the email you sent me concerning the property, which was going to be discussed, and now it's being pushed to into January. I believe that if you on, I think it's December 7th, or would have been the date, or December 5th, if you just send the committee members your fiscal update for the month, we'll be good. So, Dr. Sprague, we will not need to meet in December.
Okay.
The only thing that I missed, Mary Kay, is I was in attendance at the Finance Committee as well as the Curriculum Committee.
Okay.
Any other questions for the Finance Committee? Hearing no other questions, all in favor of accepting the Finance Committee minutes as read, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, let it be known by saying aye. Then it's carried. Moving on to item F, the Curriculum Instruction Committee report. I will look for a motion.
I move the board approve the minutes from the November 7, 2022 Curriculum Instruction Committee meeting.
Second.
Motion's been made to approve the minutes from the November 7, 2022 Curriculum Instruction Committee meeting. Jill, you can give the report.
So do we technically not need a second anymore?
I haven't gotten there to explain that yet, so just hold on, JD, it's coming.
All right, so the report from the committee meeting, it was held November 7th, called to order at 7:30 p.m. Committee members present include myself, JD Schrader, Danny Pyatt. Committee members absent, Dr. Dave Bardo. Administration present included Dr. Julie Sprague, Tom Zamzow, Rachel Tassler, Donna Smith, and Heather McCann. Others present, other board members present include Andy Schreiber and Andy Mary, and then Katie Ostrenga was also present as well. I would note Dr. Bardo was unable to attend the meeting and did ask Angie Schreiber to sit in on his behalf. So there was no public comment. Under new business, we discussed the local report cards, which has been discussed throughout conversation tonight with that companion document that really looked at academic and learning readiness indicators for the individual schools. So it was looking to highlight the positives. As shared earlier, Andy, you mentioned, some consistency of what's shared in that document that was discussed. JD did offer the recommendation to have like a live document or electronic form where you could click on links to better clarify the information that was provided on there. So there was discussion. It was, and there was feedback in the committee meeting regarding the information that was meticulously highlighted in that companion document, but also looking to, further tweak it if needed to help it be more understanding to the community or to parents. Then some highlights to share out. The middle school highlight in math was 82% scoring, 82% of students scoring in the targeted range on FastBridge. There's also discussion about the snow shovel in community service that's facilitated by Ms. Molina and also aligns with the building goal of sense of belonging. So that was neat, and I wanted to include that as a positive shout out. Another one shared was Mrs. Tomzak and Ms. Young working on, I'm gonna mess it up. They did, it stemmed from a conversation about how do we know students are ready to move from 3rd to 4th grade and looking.
3rd grade portfolios.
Thank you. I was frantically trying to find my words. They created 3rd grade portfolios. So in the spring, this 3rd grade staff did not have to attend parent-teacher, but instead attended, and the students then presented their portfolios to the parents with the teacher present. So there's a lot of positive shares about that. The middle school also indicated excitement around that, and how can we build on that and include that at the middle school level. So again, wanting to point out those positives and celebrations. Compliments to Megan Murphy, our school psych, and the principals that compiled the data for the companion document. Then the human growth and development curriculum information was shared by Ms. Doms. She included the state statute for the human growth and development instruction, noting the requirement for an advisory committee for for any school that offers the human growth and development curriculum, which we do. So she would like to see the district implementing an advisory committee by the end of the school year, and will bring updates to the curriculum and instruction committee as it develops. So that was really just informative, providing the statute and then updates to follow. Then we had curriculum review process updates. Ms. Dems provided an update on the first quarter survey that was provided to staff regarding the new curriculum. And it included areas for needs for assistant, the type of learning it took for staff, what's exciting, and then some barriers. So it's really looking at how to target action steps to support staff with the new curriculum we purchased, so it can be best utilized. Then she also updated the committee on curriculum planning, which is in progress and noted earlier. So the goal is that within curriculum and instruction, Ms. Doms will bring us updates. So then by the time her staff has selected a curriculum for purchase, those updates have been provided to the curriculum and instruction committee along the way before it gets brought to the full board, which she has done well with providing those updates to us. We then looked at class size and ratios. This stemmed from some questions I've gotten regarding elementary schools, really where it initiated, whether it's a class size student to staff ratio in the elementary levels. So I'm just giving the background on why it ended up on the agenda. Student to staff ratios specific to then, well, not specific to a broader conversation of behaviors and supports for the classroom teacher and other adult staff available to assist with behaviors, because we do hear a lot in the district about concerns with behaviors. So that's, and then also the number of students per grade level per school with IEPs, to just look at dynamics of things that may be impacting learning or not, or additional supports and interventions available within each individual grade level and classroom. So Ms. Doms did share the student to teacher ratio for the district, noting the high school results are based on core classes. She also added that all the 4K classrooms have an assigned instructional assistant, correct? Okay, yep. And then I believe, but then the video recording ended, so I couldn't fully review my notes, but I think you also had shared the number of students per grade level with IEPs, but I couldn't verify that. No? Okay, then thank you. Scratch that. Next is a strategic plan information discussion. So that was brought to our committee meeting from the full board for further discussion. No new information was presented to the committee. The next step is to present district goals to the committee prior to board consideration, with discussion including drafting at least one goal per pillar. And then the meeting adjourned at 9:12 p.m. with the next potentially scheduled curriculum and instruction meeting being Monday, December 5th, though Amy noted nothing needed for that agenda. And so I don't anticipate we'll have a curriculum and instruction committee meeting in the month of December.
Okay, are there any questions for Jill and the Curriculum Instruction Committee?
Yes, I have a question.
Sure.
So is the concern that we're disproportionate with the number of students with IEPs and grade levels, or?
The concern, broad concerns, and it was brought to me by a few different people over time, and so that's why I'm like, let's throw it on curriculum and instruction to start a conversation and continue a conversation if needed. But not just proportionately, more so if there's a student that it has behaviors and requires like the classroom to be removed for safety purposes, you know, what supports are available in that classroom for that teacher, or is it the teacher addressing the behavior of one student, but also, you know, responding to 22 other students at the same time. So just, again, it was in the discussion of what do behaviors look like. I did not get a vibe there was a negative connotation attached to anything, but just, we talk about behaviors a lot. What do those behaviors look like? What do our classroom sizes and ratios look like? What's the supports available? I think it's pretty common for people to, the general public, to know more about an aid in the classroom associated with an IEP. So that's just another set of hands and eyes and ears and supports. But then going further to, are there classrooms without any aides? What might those staff members need? So more just, let's have a discussion and engagement on that, and see if there's any further discussion points to move forward. I haven't heard anything further on that, so I don't anticipate anything else going on a future agenda. But that's really the scope of the why behind it.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Yes, Angie.
I just want to make a comment that it was during that committee meeting that it was discussed how CISA 9 has just begun implementing restorative justice training for school districts, and I just want to put that out there so that people know. And then also, I don't know how that's being implemented throughout our school district. So I just wanted to add that came out of that meeting as well.
But they called it restorative practices, and I have no idea if that's the same or different things.
No, it was called restorative justice.
Practices. I use the term restorative justice on that strategic plan document, and practices are at the classroom level, what a teacher does.
Okay, so I thought what you guys said the presentation was that CISA 9 gave was around restorative practices, but I didn't see the presentation, so I didn't.
That was in my committee meeting. I'll tell you about it in a couple.
Thank you, Kristen.
This is killing me.
Any other questions about curriculum instruction? Hearing none, all in favor of accepting the minutes as read, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, let it be known by saying aye. And we have accepted the minutes of the curriculum instruction. Letter G, Building and Grounds Committee report. Looking for a motion from the Building and Grounds Committee report.
I move the board approve the minutes from the November 14th, 2022 Building and Grounds Committee meeting.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded that the board approve the minutes from the November 14, 2022 Building and Grounds Committee report. Angie, you may give the report.
Okay. The Building and Grounds Committee was met on Monday, November 14th. And the first item that we discussed was Mark Kulza presented a proposal for upgrading 6 security door video intercom systems. And we talked about, if it was really a necessary move and what, if they've tried to do any, like different upgrades and stuff like that to the current system. And it's just one of those things where the use of life is done on these, and you can't update it. It's kind of like your phone. You can only update for so long, right? So that's coming to the board later on in the agenda for approval. So if you have any questions, we can talk about that more then. We also covered the middle school window project. Clint Sell from Bray Architects was there, and he presented 3 options for the window replacements. As a committee, we couldn't really decide if one versus the other, so we wanted to bring all of them to the board for your input, because we didn't feel comfortable saying, yes, go with option 1, 2, or 3. And that is, again, on the agenda a little bit later. So the committee did favor option 2, but again, we're going to present all 3 to the full board. One thing that was noted, we had quite a bit of a discussion around this. One thing that was noted was if we were possibly getting ahead of ourselves with the window project, because Bray Architects is also doing the, what are we calling it, the school capacity, thank you, study, and that's going to tell us, if we're using our spaces in the most efficient way. Meaning, should we move grades around, like we've talked, about earlier? Or could we do something else? Can we add on to, a certain location or something like that? Any ideas, that they can come up with. So are we putting the cart before the horse? I don't know, because, we don't want to, we want to make sure we're just doing things correctly, right? In the right order. We don't want to just waste money. We talked about the energy difference between the different options, and we didn't really have any information on that. We talked about educational value with increasing with having more natural light. So there was discussion around that we had, and let's see. So that's going to be coming forward later on in this meeting. We can discuss more then. I think Jake's got a presentation, I believe. The same one. Okay. And then we also, again, we talked about the building capacity update, and we're hoping to get some information from Bray Architects pretty soon on that. And then we talked about the Energy Innovation Grant Program and how that can possibly be applied to our school district. There's been other school districts that have been awarded quite a bit of money, and I think Jake was going to attend the webinar the next day, and so maybe you can give an update later on about that, or if it's going to work. So our next committee meeting is Monday, December 12th, and Bray and Associates are scheduled to be there to discuss more about the window project, and then also the building capacity update. No, that was it.
Questions for the minutes of the Building and Grounds Committee? Hearing no questions, all in favor of accepting the minutes as read, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, let it be known by saying aye. And then it's carried. Letter H, Pupil Services Special Education Committee report. I will be looking for a motion.
I move the board approve the minutes from the November 14th, 2022 Pupil Services Special Education Committee meeting.
I second.
Motion's been made and seconded for the board to approve the minutes from the November 14, 2022 Pupil Services and Special Education Committee meeting. Kristen, you may give your report.
All right. So we met on Monday, November 14th at 7:30. Our initial discussion was on the restorative practice and providing more education on that. The CESA 9 group has trained 3 of our staff members who are now qualified to train the rest of the staff, which occurs on PD days mostly. It's, in my understanding, it's an option to attend, and it is a very popular option. It's focused on grades 4 through 12, although there was some agreement and discussion that it works better in the younger grades. More focus on restoring relationships, but it doesn't replace consequences, and it's part of the mental health grant that we are in our 2nd year of. We then moved on to the safety crisis planning update. So there is the safety team, which is the physical aspect, and then the crisis team, which is the mental aspect. That will come to, they're working together to create their plan, and that will come before the entire board in our December meeting, as it needs to be approved by January 1st. Speak Out is what we are using going forward at no cost to the district, and it's had quite success already. And then we ended with Handle with Care, which is a program in partner with the police department, where the police department or the sheriff's department will alert the school if there's a child who has had an encounter with any of those individuals. And so they're aware when they come to school that we handle them with care. That's the title. There's some resistance currently from their end. So Amanda Moore is working to get that figured out. They do use it over in Wausau, and it's beneficial there, so we are trying to implement it here as well. We will meet in December, on December 12th, with a focus on behavior. We wanted to meet to get our first quarter results so that we're not getting second quarter results back to back. Meeting adjourned at 8:42.
Any questions for the minutes of the Pupil Services Special Education Committee?
How would you feel about the restorative practices presentation, did it seem like it would be effective to you, or did it make you feel very hesitant, or do you not know?
It seemed that it would be beneficial in younger kids, and I understand that you need to start somewhere, because you can't just, start it in 4th grade and work your way up. So if the 10th graders maybe had it in 4th grade, it would have been more beneficial to them now. And Heidi brings up a good point that some adults would rather have a detention than to talk about what they did wrong. But it was stressed that it doesn't replace consequences. It's just make them aware in the situation and then discuss later how to fix it instead of, it's kind of an.
Yeah, why do we
prevent it
start
from
in
happening
4th
before.
grade and not in 2nd or something?
It was my impression that it wouldn't, their minds aren't there yet.
Okay.
It wouldn't be work. They're not here, but that was my understanding.
Responsive classroom starts in 3rd grade. Responsive classroom does. So, and then in 4th grade, yeah.
So, yeah, they're focused on setting the expectations in 1st and 2nd before they can, is that?
Thank you,
fair?
Donna.
Yeah.
So I will just add, responsive classrooms, we did send several teachers from both East, West, and North to responsive classrooms training. It does start in 4K, so several of our teachers have been trained in responsive classrooms. It's restorative, so the restorative practices is at the older ages. The responsive classrooms, that deals with like the morning meeting, quiet time, closing circles. There's several different parts of responsive classrooms, but that does start at the lower elementary.
You kind of have to know how things affect you before they would know how they affect other people.
Yeah.
Your actions, I should say.
Thank you, Donna, for making the determination between those two, or distinguishing those two. Thanks. Any other questions for the Pupil Service Special Education Committee?
I just have one. It was mentioned that we're part of Marshfield Clinics. There's a research group that's doing research on after-school groups. I'm not sure exactly what that is about. I don't know if
Life tools.
if Julie can explain on
I
that.
can put, I think we're in year 2. It's a program that helps kids with their, whatever they need to work on after school. I don't know about the research part, Angie. I would have to investigate that, and I can put it and we can review,
Okay.
because I don't have the details memorized.
It was kind of mentioned in passing as to why we get Speak Up, Seat Out without paying for it.
Why we get the best without paying for it. So the best mental health screener for kids. So that's kind of the research part with Marshfield Clinic. They were grouped with another group. I don't remember. Dr. Eric Hartwig heads that up, and that's what we use to identify interventions that would be good and useful for kids. So the teacher takes the screener on the different students in their classrooms, you take it in a whole grade level, and then it gives you ideas of things to try in your classroom to help with behaviors. So out of that also comes the Life Tools. It's kind of like a partner program. Life Tools is an after-school group that your school counselor or social worker would run, and it would work on, life tools, right? Like, how do you handle your emotions? How are you coping with daily activities of task management, organization, those kind of things. It is all ran after school, and then they're bused home. I believe there's a meal component there, too.
Thank you. Are there any other questions, comments? Hearing no questions or comments, all in favor of accepting the Pupil Services Special Education Committee report, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
And any opposed, let it be known by saying aye. And it's carried. Moving to letter I, the Policy Committee report. I will be looking for a motion, please.
I move the board approve the minutes from the November 21, 2022 Policy Committee meeting.
I second.
Motion's been made and seconded for the board to approve the minutes from the November 21, 2022 Policy Committee meeting. And the report is as follows. We met on Monday, the 21st, beginning at 6 p.m. The business that we had at hand was looking again at Policy 3130 and 3120. And in the discussion with Dr. Sprague, presented a suggested revision to the assignment and transfer policy. and the revision of the assignment and transfer policy for both of those, and that will be brought forth for its first reading at this meeting. Then we also looked at a number of other policies. However, some of the policies that were brought forth was put on hold by our school board attorney, Dean Dietrich, for him to review some legal cases pending right now. And those were policy 8800, religious and patriotic ceremonies and observances. One of the things, just to put the board on notice, is what he is looking at. We do not force students to recite the Pledge of Allegiance at the beginning of each school day. That is in our policy. However, what was proposed for changes is having everybody stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and that's what he's searching case law, because his opinion is that we don't force students to recite because of freedom of speech, so how can we force them to stand, because that could be freedom of speech as well. So he will be contacting us about that at a later date. And then the administrative guideline 8800D, the care, custody, and display of the United States flag. He asked also for that to be put on hold. Policy 5464, early graduation. We reviewed that policy, and we added some verbiage to that policy, and we will be reading that for its first reading later in the meeting. In the administrative guidelines for 8220 for school day, we didn't have discussion on that because, again, that had to deal with the American flag and what needs to happen and what flags can be displayed, cannot be displayed. So that's what he is searching for us. We also looked at the administrative guidelines 6111A, grant writing, responding to RFPs. The changes to this policy were presented and discussed. However, we feel like at the committee that we gave Dr. Sprague an idea of whenever somebody is writing a grant, please help me say this correctly, writing a grant or applying for a grant, in her weekly memos, because I finally learned it's a COLT meeting on Tuesdays and not a COLA meeting on Tuesdays. In their COLT meeting on Tuesdays, they talk about central office grants and possible grant writings, and she will let us know what comes out of those COLT meetings in her weekly memo as to what she's doing and other administrators.
Right, related specifically to grants that would apply to the whole district.
District-wide,
not individual teacher.
Yeah, because we did discover there were a number of teachers that apply for classroom grants for supplies, and you know, there's a plethora of grants out there that teachers apply for, and we're not asking for that. We're just asking for grants that are district-wide that affects the entire district. So that's where we're going with that. As well as the administrative guidelines 6111B, the same thing. Dr. Sprague will keep the board apprised as to what's going on with the grant writing through her weekly memos that she sends to everybody. Yes, Angie, I forget something.
Oh, I just wanted to add that she'll also be including the link to the specific grants, so that if we want to do additional research or look into, you know, because every grant has strings attached to it. So if anybody would like to see that, then we're aware of it before it comes to us to vote on.
Yeah, we felt the committee, you know, it was approached that the board approves all grants that affect the district. However, grants have such strict guidelines and deadlines that if we put it in that structure where the board has to approve it, somebody might miss the deadline for that grant writing. So that's where Dr. Sprague is going to keep us informed of what's going on throughout each week in the weekly memo. And then we adjourned rather lengthy at 8:15. Yes, Angie.
I just want to add that policy 5464, the early graduation policy that was to be considered for action at tonight's meeting, is not on tonight's agenda.
It's not there. Oh. Well, It'll have to be on next month because we cannot talk about moving an action item without it being on the agenda. So, Mary Kay, I'm sorry I overlooked that as well.
I did too. So then there'll have to be an amended version of the minutes because it says that it'll be on tonight's agenda for approval.
Yes, the minutes would be amended that it was an oversight of having it on the agenda for the November 28 board meeting for action, and it will come back to the December 19th board for action. Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, all in favor of accepting the policy committee report with the amendment of moving that one action to December the 19th, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, aye. No opposition. And I've lost my place.
Board action.
Okay, we're moving on to item number 5, board action. And here, JD, is where I want to briefly go over the memo that I had sent out to all the board members yesterday. As I was going back, as I put in the memo to the board members and reviewing some of our meetings, sometimes it feels like that, to me, it appears to some of the public, because I've heard some comments like this from the public, that we are actually more like a daytime talk show than a elected body of members that's doing business for the district.
Danny,
So
you weren't flattered by that? Maybe you're the watch.
I was not flattered. I don't have time to watch daytime talk shows, but I've seen and heard some stuff, and no. So what I did is I just went to Robert's Rules of Order, because that is what we adopted in April. Every April, whenever we organize the board, we adopt Robert's Rules as our rule of governing for our board meetings. I'm not going to read everything in its entirety. You folks read those. However, you see the duties of what the chair is responsible for. We also have made the statement that we are following Robert's Rules of Order for small boards, because Robert's Rules specifically says small boards are boards of 12 or fewer members, and we are fewer than 12 boards. And some of this parliamentary procedure came out of some conversations that I've had with Dr. Deep with how can we grab a hold of this parliamentary process and make it a little bit more effective. I do want to take a couple of minutes and let you know what the procedures are for small boards, just so that way the community understands. As a small board, there are some different things that you do rather than as a large assembly or a large board larger than 12. And those are large boards and assemblies, you stand in order to speak. Small boards, you don't. You don't have to stand. We remain seated. You don't have to stand up in the certain order. You just raise your hand. And I do want to thank the members like Andy and Angie, and I don't know if anybody else raised their hand tonight, because you did read the material. So all you do is raise your hand, and then the chair will call upon you to recognize you for you to speak at that particular time. Motions do not need to be seconded in small boards. So moving forward, all we do is make the motion, and then we have our discussion on that motion. There is no limit of the number of times a member can speak to a debatable question. So for large boards, I just want to show you the difference here. For large boards and assemblies, there is a limit that a speaker can only speak 2 times at a maximum of 10 minutes each time for any one particular item. However, for small boards, the limit is not there. However, we can, as you can see in the italicized, straight from Robert's Rules, we can set that time whenever we start a meeting, or if we're going into a debatable motion and somebody says, I move that we limit the debate to 2 speeches per person. That does require a 2/3 vote to limit the debate. It is amendable, so if Dr. Deep says, I want to limit it to move that we limit to 2 speeches per person, And Tarina says, I want to amend that to 3 speeches. Now we talk about the 3 speeches. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, I won't hit that one anymore. Informal discussion of a subject is permitted while no motion is pending. We actually do that currently. I mean, I've sat here on the board for almost 6 years now, and under Mike Boldig and under Andy, and I've seen other past presidency before Mike Boldig, we'll start discussing something before a motion is put on the floor. That's informal discussion. It is allowed in small boards. If we were in a large board setting, the chair would stop the discussion immediately. When a proposal is perfectly clear to all present, the vote is taken. The motion's reintroduced again, as I've tried to exercise that tonight. And unless it's agreed by unanimous consent, we have done that in the past. If not, we can vote either roll call vote, we can vote show of hands, we can vote voice vote. However, whatever the chair decides to vote, at that point, after the vote is taken, any member immediately following that vote can call for any type of vote. So if I say a show of hands and you want a roll call, you can do a roll call.
So are you changing the vote on money then? Or is that, could you still do a show of hands or something instead of a roll call on?
We can do a show of hands. We can do aye. All in favor say aye on any issue before the board.
So you can ask for a division and you can have.
You can ask for a division, have people stand. You can do a roll call vote. So, you know, it's.
Or secret ballot if you want.
For our school boards, secret ballot is not legal. Only for voting for the elected officers is secret ballot. Okay, any other questions on that?
I guess I have a question. So like when administration wants to speak or like when Julie wants to speak, do they have to raise their hands?
They need also to get the attention of the chair, and the chair must recognize them as well.
Okay.
So how do we do it when Tim is presenting and then we want to ask him a question? So do we have to wait?
Raise your hand and the presiding officer should call on you for that. You don't.
Killing me.
address-
So I have to sit here patiently.
And they can't address each person of the board. They need to address the board as
Chair
a whole.
first, yep.
Or you ask the chair for permission, can I ask JD a question or something like that? But you cannot indulge in one-on-one discussion.
So Danny's gonna have to be looking back and forth
Yes.
constantly while somebody's,
And the other thing too, JD, on the same vein, board members are not to ask another board member a question. You are to direct your questions to the chair, and then the chair can say, you can ask Angie that question. I'm sorry, I'm getting too demonstrative here. You know, and a lot of this, a lot of things affects for large boards, and I've went through the small boards. Mary Kay and I spent a little time on the phone today talking about this because she had questions as well about where we're going to. In a small board, the chairman doesn't need to stand up while putting, you know, we all can remain seated. If the chairman is a member in a small board, he may, without leaving the chair, speak in informal discussions and in debate and vote on all questions. In large assemblies, the chair cannot debate on anything. The chair cannot speak on informal discussions. The chair, if the chair wants to speak on something, he has to turn it over to the vice chair for that vice chair to take the authority of that particular item that's up for debate. And then that vice chair becomes the chair, and he or she then cannot speak to the debate or debate in the motion. But for small boards, the chair can speak. Andy, did you have a question? I saw you raise up there.
So back to the example of Tim presenting something and
Yes.
I want to ask him a
Thanks
question.
for coming back to that.
But what if I have a line of questioning I want to ask him? Do I have to?
You get the attention of the chair.
Yeah.
For each question?
For each question, yeah. The other thing, too, when it comes to the debate process under the rules of decorum, the next section there, provided no modifications have been made to the rules of debate, each member is entitled to speak. You see it says twice because that's what Robert's Rules says. But remember, keep in mind, small boards, We can speak as many times unless a modification has been made. If somebody says, I want to limit debate to 2 speeches, we have to vote on that. 2/3 majority wins. And if it fails, then we're back to you can speak as many times as you want. 10 minutes each. Mary Kay will have cards in front of her. She'll have a yellow card that she'll show up at 8 minutes, and she'll have a red card that she will show up at the last 10 seconds. And whenever her alarm goes off at 10, if you're right in the middle of a sentence, please forgive me now in advance. I'm going to have to ask you to be quiet.
So
Because your 10 minutes is up.
per agenda item?
10 minutes per agenda item, yes.
And so, like,
10 minutes
question-
per speech, per person per speech.
In other words, JD, you can filibuster.
I was laughing about that on the way.
Up to 10 minutes.
Up to 10 minutes.
On this small board, you talk like 2
Well,
minutes.
I'll be asking
max.
for amendments then.
But
Most
so,
places, they leave it at 2 minutes.
but so she's gonna try to time me every time I ask a 5-second question.
Absolutely.
And that counts as my speech. So you need
Absolutely.
like 10 stopwatches. That's gonna be no fun for you.
So the other thing that I want to add to this, whenever you are speaking for the motion, say for example, the policy committee report, you want to speak about that. You've got 10 minutes to speak about that policy committee report. If you want to ask Tim a question during that report, that's fine, but his answer is counting toward your 10 minutes. Your clock doesn't stop just because somebody else is speaking. So that administrator is also counted into your 10 minutes of speaking. Does that make sense to everybody?
So when Jill reports on the curriculum committee, is
Yeah.
that counting towards her 10 minutes?
No, she is giving a committee report. Yeah.
Talking about motions.
Motions. This is on debatable items.
I'm probably gonna screw this up, but you can.
That's okay. I'm probably going to make a mistake too. Mary Kay and we're going to help each other, give signals, whatever that we need to do.
It sounds entertaining.
Now,
I don't know.
whenever a motion is made on a matter, the first person to speak when it's time for speaking is the person that made that motion. For example, the motion is made on the policy committee report. Dr. Sprague made the motion, so I will look to her to get the first 10 minutes to speak, unless Trina says we want to limit debate to 2 minutes or whatever.
So what happens when I make a statement and then Dr. Sprague responds to it? Is that part of my 10 minutes?
Absolutely. Dr. Sprague can't respond unless you are asking her a question directly, and then she can respond to your question. Or if you ask any administrator a question, but that does count toward your 10 minutes, or whatever Trina says, no, I'm just kidding, whatever it's amended.
Say he can.
Yes, yep.
And,
In other words, you're saying, I'd like to ask Dr. Sprague a question, go ahead.
so Mary Kay is going to have 9 stopwatches over there
No,
running?
It's only one
No, it's only
stopwatch
one
every
going.
time.
because it
Because you
doesn't
don't have
stop.
10 people.
It doesn't stop. Whenever you speak, she starts at 0. And then when your 10 minutes is up and JD starts speaking, she'll start at 0. Because nobody's going to interrupt you for your 10 minutes.
And then I can go back and have another 10 minutes after everybody else has spoken.
After everybody else has spoken once, then you can go back and speak again. The other thing that needs to be brought out for Robert's rules as well, and it's in there, the chair, and I did make this bold so that way we see it, the chair should alternate debate between affirmative and negative positions. So if you're speaking in favor of the motion, you need to start your 10-minute speech by saying, I speak in favor of this motion, because then that tells me I need to look for somebody who's in the opposition for the next speech. If nobody's in the opposition, we just go on to the next person that's in favor of the motion.
How do you know if somebody else is in opposition?
Whenever that person gets done speaking, I'll say, is there anybody in opposition?
Okay.
We can say pro and con.
Yeah. Pro and con could be another, might be a more
Easy,
fancy.
valid.
Yeah.
So the administrators don't get time of their own. We have to call on them.
No, because this is a board meeting, not an administration meeting. And then when you're speaking, you have to be speaking to what's germane for what's on the floor. Does that make sense? So
I can't like read the Bible Or
No.
like read the phone book or something, like a real filibuster?
No, you cannot. There is a way that you can read. You can read, not you, but you can ask for a vote to be taken if you can read. This is in Robert's Rules. I was amazed by this. I served on parliamentary boards 20 years ago, but this is all something fresh and new. Mary Kay then would read whatever you want to be read from a book, a paper, anything of that nature. For example, tonight, whenever I was reading this should have been given to Mary Kay for her to read.
So,
Yes, ma'am.
so if a person says that they've been called on to speak, right, and they say, I want, call the vote. So what is that? Because in large boards, that means that you have to call the vote then if somebody says that.
Yes, but when you ask for a vote, you can't speak to something and then call a vote. So you raise your hand, and when it's your turn, you can always call the vote. And if that happens, then the chair has to ask the will of the board. If a majority, it's a simple majority says yes, then you vote.
Okay.
If 5 people say no and 4 people say yes to vote immediately, then your motion has failed. So you go back to ongoing debate.
So what you're asking is answered in number 7 in the chart on the next page. It's called previous question. That's what you're asking for.
Okay.
Is a second required? Yes. Somebody has to give you a second, but again, we're in a small board, so second's not required. Is this amendable? No. Is this debatable? No, but it requires a 2/3 vote, and that's what Dr. Deep just said.
Okay.
Is it, may you interrupt? There are some things that you can interrupt. For example, Dr. Deep may be speaking about X, Y, Z, whatever, and then you can interrupt his speech or anybody else's speech by asking a question of privilege. You want to question something that's going on in the agenda. That you can interrupt a speaker. There are not many things that you can interrupt a speaker for, according to Robert's Rules. You got to let them speak for their allotted time that they're allowed to speak.
So let's say I make the motion, I speak, then I finish by saying, and I call the question. And I cannot.
You cannot.
So you cannot call your own question after you spoke?
No, if you speak to or against something, you can
Yes.
call the vote.
Yes.
But then,
Get in line to only call a vote.
Yeah.
so the next person could call the question.
Regarding the points, the personal points of privilege, supposing somebody's falling down here, needs some help.
Yeah.
Yes, I can interrupt somebody.
Or point of order.
Or I'm speaking and you can't hear me because I'm sitting way back here, you can say
Point of order.
I can't hear him, or
Yeah.
my speaker is not working, I can't hear you there.
So it's not always going to be up to me to say, get closer to the microphone. Any one of you can say point of order, and I will say, JD, what is your point of order? And you will say, Tim needs to get closer to the microphone.
Can we all have a hammer?
Let's just pick on Tim.
Also, no.
Okay? So there are different categories of motions in there that I put out for you to look at. Something that I wanted Mary Kay to see this. This is a Spark Charts notes of Robert's Rules. It's a valuable tool, and Mary Kay is going to look at it. We may just order one of these for everybody because they have it at Walmart. I don't know. I got it off of Amazon, but most of the material that you got from me in that email came from the Spark notes, and then I went straight to the Robert's Rules of Order, the thick book, the newly revised, and made sure that what I was putting in there was exactly what's in the book. And then Mary Kay followed up today and checked a lot of things. Do you have a question? No?
We'll just see how it goes.
Yeah, it's going to be trial and error, and tonight is our trial and error to start this. But again, I believe what this will do, this will prevent us from becoming a nighttime talk show on behalf of the Unified School District of Antigo. It will bring some order to our speaking, and at any point during a debate, anybody can say, I move that we limit the debate to 5 minutes, 3 minutes. You don't have to do that at the beginning of the debate. It can be any time during the debate that can happen.
So essentially, you're then cutting off the rest of the people who want to speak.
Yes.
If the rest of the board agrees.
If the rest of the board agrees with you. 2/3.
Two-thirds.
Two-thirds vote is what it takes, not majority.
So are you betting? Do you think this will make our meeting shorter or longer or indifferent?
I don't know.
We'll find out.
We'll find out. Any other questions about this?
What about the amending motions now? So,
Same as before. When it's your turn, you can amend the motion.
and there's no second required?
No.
And can we do this like 3 times or whatever, 4 times? You can amend it as many times as you want, or didn't we have a limit on that before?
It's only 2.
Yeah, it is
You can
only
only
2.
go to a second order amendment.
Yeah.
You vote on the second order amendment, go back to
Yeah.
the first, then you go.
Then it goes back to the main.
Voted or not voted down, then it goes to the main motion. But here you have the hierarchy of the motions.
Yes.
You can only go to one that is above that.
Yes. That's why I wanted you to have, all of us to have that chart of the 13 ranking motions. And this is specifically what Dr. Deep and I have been talking about, is the ranking motions. Because I mistakenly called Dr. Deep out 2 meetings ago and said he was wrong, and publicly I apologize because you were right and I was wrong. I told you I was going to do this publicly, and you said no, but I said, yes, I will.
Good for you, Danny.
Any other questions? Hey, JD, when I'm wrong, I'm wrong.
One more question on the amendment. If you amend a motion and then you amend it again to amend the amendment,
Yep.
and both of those get defeated,
It goes back to the main motion.
goes back to the main motion, but can't you make another
Yes.
amendment?
Yes, you can only have 2 amendments to the main motion, but as Andy just pointed out, if those amendments fail, it goes back to the main motion. Another scenario can happen, the second amendment passes, then goes to the first, and then goes to the main motion, right? You following me now? Now somebody else can come behind and say, I want to amend that motion.
Yep.
Yeah, and this is where Mary Kay is going to keep us in line.
This is when I'm out.
Yeah. No, we'll help each other out on this, okay? We'll be fine. I believe we will. All right, so having said that,
I'm ready.
we're ready to move on to item number 5, consideration to approve second reading of revised grievance policy.
I move the board approve the second reading of the revised grievance policy as presented.
Motion has been made that we move that the board approve the second reading of the revised grievance policy as presented. Is there any discussion? Dr. Bartle.
We had a grievance policy earlier in the school year, and I am talking in favor of this motion. Dean Dietrich, our board attorney, said that when he looked at our grievance policy, he saw some very needed changes, and that's what's before us.
Anybody else like to speak to that motion? Anybody else like to speak to that motion? And a third time, anybody would like to speak to that motion? Hearing nobody speaking to that motion, all in favor of the motion before the board is I move the board approve the second reading of the revised grievance policy as presented, and let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, let it be known by saying aye. Then it's carried. Item B, consideration to approve first reading of revised policy 3120, employment of professional staff.
I move the board approve the first reading of revised policy 3120, employment of professional staff as presented.
Motion on the floor is the board approve the first reading of revised policy 3120, employment of professional staff as presented. Dr. Deep, you have the floor.
Well, I'd like to thank the policy committee for reviewing this and for the input provided by the administration. And I think it is in the spirit of what we had discussed at our previous board meeting, so I support this.
Dr. Deep speaking in favor of. Is there anybody speaking against? Is there anybody else would like to speak in favor of? Jill?
I just would like to echo the same as Dr. Deep, that I am speaking in favor of the motion and feel it is a compromise that meets the interests of the board and also supports the interests of the district administrator to allow for increased communication and involvement indirectly or more directly if an individual board member were to choose. So I think it merges that and increases communication. It also, I think, further supports, the board's further able to support the district administrator when she brings a recommendation to the board because there's prior information available. And so it is not so much of a blind vote, so to speak, when the recommendation is made to the board. So I am in support.
JD?
Two of the things we talked about when we did this was that the interview process means you could join administration for the pre-interview process. So if you had questions, you could mention them to the administrators to have them ask them since we wouldn't be participating. That was something that Angie thought was good participation. What was the other thing I was going to say? Got 10 minutes to come up with it.
We're not going to sit here and wait for your 10 minutes to come up with it. You can always speak again.
I forgot what it was.
Angie?
So just to kind of piggyback off what JD just said, so as I'm reading this, I don't feel that makes that very clear that any board member can be part of the pre-interview process, right? That we could submit questions or talk to administration regarding questions on the interview process. This makes it sound like we're just going to get the information and then we can show up and not participate and just kind of observe, right?
Can I respond?
Dr. Sprague, you may respond.
We agreed that that term, like JD said, interview processes start to finish. So the first question I would ask of the board would be if there's any interest in joining that process. And so it would start before that committee is actually even assembled. So if any of you did decide to join, you would be there for the question portion of it.
I guess I remembered my other point now.
Hold on 1 second. We're still on Angie.
Oh, okay. So I guess where this is coming from is where it says observing, or shall ask if any board members are interested in observing in the interview process, and then it says without participating. So that implies that you're just observing, like even with the pre-interview questions, right? Does anybody else read it that way, or is it just me? Like for future boards or anybody reading this, could this be confusing?
The only thing that I'll say as the chair by being in that meeting was exactly what Dr. Sprague said. It was just an understood statement that whenever she comes out to the board and says we're going to be interviewing for Tim Prunty's position of business manager, does any board member want to be part of that process? And if somebody wants to be part of that process, they have to be part of the process entirely with all candidates, not just one or two. So it's a commitment that you'll make for all that process. And then during that process, the questions that the board member has will be directed to Dr. Sprague, and then she will bring those to the candidate. The board members are present, the board members are there, but they don't participate in speaking to that candidate. That's done through the administration and the interview team.
Okay.
Does that understand? Is that clear?
Yeah, I understand. I'm just saying that the policy as it reads now does not state that very clearly.
You have the opportunity to amend the motion if you so please.
Danny, that was my other
Just 1 second, we're still on.
Sorry, Angie.
Write it down.
Okay, so you get to go back. That's the essential.
Yeah.
It's not like, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I didn't know that either.
Okay.
Provided nobody else wants to speak, yes.
Okay, I'm done for now.
Okay. Does anybody else want to speak? Rena.
So I am speaking against the policy. I would like to amend the policy to say that the suggested revision would be district administrator, big D, big A, would seek board member to participation in the interview process. If no board members are interested in participating, they would continue the process. I think that observing without participating is weird. I think if I was coming into an interview, I think that's weird. I know that this all went through committee and whatnot. I think that's weird.
I just want to clarify, you are asking to strike the entire green section in that policy and insert your amendment?
Yes.
And is your amendment written down?
No, but I can write it.
Can you write it, please, and pass it over to me? So that way we can direct our comments now to the amendment. So the motion on the floor now in front of us is to amend the motion that we have on the floor.
Sorry.
You should type it on the screen on like Microsoft Docs so we can just see it.
While Trina is writing this out, I will say that Robert's Rules does suggest that if you are planning to come to a meeting and amend a motion, that you bring your amendment in writing and present it to the chair at that time and to the secretary. And if we did that, we potentially could put that on the screen. The amendment reads, the district administrator will ask for board member participation if none is found, process will continue.
So,
Hold one second.
Can you tell me where that is going?
All the green that's in there right now, Dr. Deep, is being stricken and being replaced by this amendment.
Okay, how does that make sense? For what positions are you talking about then?
This would be for,
In policy 3120, right?
yes, employment of professional staff.
So, but if you take away the context, that's what I'm trying to get at there.
Yes,
You're taking away the entire context then. If
I
you're saying-
understand that, but the amendment is what's on the floor right now is this. Now, you can amend the amendment,
The Dr. Deep would have to amend.
yes.
But so am I understanding this correctly, that the entire thing in green is going away, or are you starting from after the word principles?
Well, the way that I wrote it and gave it to Danny, which it seems like we're locked into, is that the entire thing in green would be going away.
Dr. Deep, you have the opportunity
Yes.
to amend. However, you need to wait just 1 second
Sure, go ahead.
because she needs to speak to her amendment. And I think you've already done that.
Yeah.
Dr. Deep.
Okay, I'll speak against that proposed amendment for the simple reason that this policy is in regards to employment of professional staff. So if you take away the entire context and just say that this district superintendent will ask for volunteers from the board to participate as observers, it does not make sense to me as to what she's asking volunteers for. Is she asking for a volunteer to come and observe anything that's going on in the district office? Is it for somebody that is going to be observing the high school principal in action? It does not give you the proper context. So I would suggest that we leave the first 3 lines in there, and where the word principals is followed by a dash, that is where the amended language would come in. So I would propose deletion and addition. So deleting the sentence from the district administrator shall ask if any board members are interested in observing the interview process without participating, and replacing it with the proposed language there.
I get that. However, your amendment would have to read when the following positions become vacant.
Yes.
Because right now, we're dealing with just
Okay.
this right now. So what is before the floor right now is when the following positions become vacant: Director of Buildings and Grounds, Director of Business Services, Director of Curriculum and Instruction, Director of Pupil Services and Special Education, Human Resource Specialists, and Principals, the district administrator will ask for board member participation. If none is found, process will continue.
Correct.
That is the amendment.
And then it continues with the district administrator should also provide redacted application information to the board prior to the interview, to the participating board members prior to the interview process. And the number of board members observing the interviews should not constitute a quorum of the full board.
So the amendment is reading, when the following positions become vacant: Director of Building and Grounds, Director of Business Services, Director of Curriculum and Instruction, Director of Pupil Services and Special Education, Human Resource Specialists, and Principals, the district administrator will ask for board member participation. If none is found, the process will continue. The district administrator shall also provide redacted application information to the board prior to the interview process. The number of board members observing interviews must not constitute a quorum of the full board.
That is correct.
That is the amendment. So now we must speak to the amendment. Dr. Deep has already spoken to the amendment as how he would like for that to read. Angie.
At the committee, we discussed also including, I'm going to say the position wrong, athletic director. What is he called? Activities director. Sorry. Yes.
In the next one.
Oh, it's in the next
Yeah,
one?
that's in the next
Oh.
one.
That's in the next one.
But I answered.
Any other comments?
So the only effect that this is having is if there's no board member interest, the process continues.
Absolutely.
Now, without that language, isn't that also what would happen?
No, because they would not, the board members would not be part of the process. Here, this is giving the board members an opportunity to be part of the process.
No, I mean without, assuming we stuck with the original motion.
I will have to defer back to the
Well,
amendment.
I think the language as proffered initially does make it a little ambivalent when you talk about observing the interview process without participating. You probably needed a little bit more clarification without participating in the interview itself. So it could have probably come to that with a couple minor editorial changes.
Does that answer your question?
Do you feel like your amendment made it clear that you're participating in the process but not the interview itself? Or do we still need that?
No, it's basically saying that they are only going to observe. It clearly states that they will only observe.
The last line reads, the number of board members observing interviews, and that's where Dr. Deep is saying that we're there to observe.
They're not participating.
Our questions goes through Dr. Sprague. Oh, I'm sorry, Dr. Bardo.
Jill had-
Oh, Jill was first? Thank you for helping me out.
I'm just seeking clarification on the redacted information. Would that, I don't know how to, am I directing this question to you?
Yes.
The redacted information then would only be provided to board members who are participating without active engagement in the interview process, or the redacted application information would be shared with the full board, though?
The way that I would interpret this policy is that the redacted information will be information to the board, which is all of us. But those that are participating, they will be present.
Okay.
Dr. Bardo.
Call the question.
Okay, so the question is being called. The previous question has been called, so it takes a 2/3 vote. All in favor of previous question, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, let it be known by saying aye. The motion on the floor now is when the following positions become vacant: Director of Building and Grounds, Director of Business Services, Director of Curriculum and Instruction, Director of Pupil Services and Special Education, Human Resource Specialists, and Principals. The district administrator will ask for board member participation. If none is found, process will continue. The district administrator shall also provide redacted application information to the board prior to the interview process. The number of board members observing interviews must not constitute a quorum of the full board. That is the motion that we are voting on currently. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Then that motion carries. Now we have the main motion on the floor, which is when the following positions become vacant: Director of Building and Grounds, Director of Business Services, Director of Curriculum Instruction, Director of Pupil Services and Special Education, Human Resource Specialists, and Principals. The district administrator will ask for board member participation. If none is found, the process will continue. The district administrator shall also provide redacted application information to the board prior to the interview process. The number of board members observing interviews must not constitute a quorum of the full board. That is now the main motion on the floor. All in favor of accepting that motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, let it be known by saying aye.
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 Can I call for a roll call?
Okay, it's been called for a roll call.
We were voting on the original motion, correct?
As amended.
As amended.
Oh,
As
as
a-
amended?
As amended, yep.
Okay, I did not hear that. I'm
Yep.
Yeah, but
I did not read that one line that was changed.
when we come back to the original motion, there's no opportunity for discussion again?
Nope, because the question was called. You go all the way back to the main motion.
So you're calling the question on all the motions?
Yep. When you call a question, it's on all business before the House. Yep.
Okay.
Mary Kay, roll call vote, please.
Borneman,
No.
Deep,
Yes.
Maddox Nelson,
Yes.
Matt Miller,
Yes.
Mary,
No.
Shriver,
I'm confused on what we're voting on. I apologize.
The motion that you are voting on is when the following positions become vacant:
Yep.
Director of Buildings and Grounds, Director of Business Services, Director of Curriculum and Instruction, Director of Pupil Services and Special Education, Human Resource Specialists, and Principals. The district administrator will ask for board member participation. If none is found, process will continue. The district administrator shall also provide redacted application information to the board prior to the interview process. The number of board members observing interviews must not constitute a quorum of the full board. We are voting on the amendment to the amendment
Okay,
that Dr. Deep provided.
sorry, I got,
Because his amendment passed, it becomes the main
Okay.
motion.
okay, yes, aye.
Schrader,
Yes.
Bartle,
Yes.
Hyatt,
Yes. Mary Kay, what's the result there? 7-2. 7-2, the motion carries. That now becomes part of the policy of 3120. Moving on to item C, consideration to approve first reading. Let me back up. I misstated. That doesn't become part of the policy. That's first reading. Thank you. Item
So
C
it
is
can get amended
consideration.
again at the second reading?
Yes,
With the amended change.
with the amended change.
That'll be next month.
So you have an opportunity to change if you want next month.
Okay, it's just weird.
Oh, gotcha. I gotcha.
We're gonna be
Item
here
C,
next month.
consideration to approve first reading of revised policy 3130, assignment and transfer. I will be looking for a motion.
I move the board approve the first reading of revised policy 3130, assignment and transfer as presented.
Dr. Deep made the motion. Dr. Deep, you may speak to the motion.
Well, as previously stated on the other reading, this was something that was discussed at this full board meeting last month, and after discussion, we sent it back to the policy committee to effect the changes that would be, that would reflect the thought of the administration and the board, and come to a compromise that would help with the process. So this addresses it, so I would make a motion for it.
Okay, the motion is to accept what is written down from the policy committee, which is when the following positions become vacant: associate principal, dean of students, and activities director. The district administrator shall ask if any board members are interested in observing the interviews without participating. The district administrator shall also provide redacted application information to the board prior to the interview process. The number of board members observing interviews must not constitute a quorum of the full board. Dr. Bardo.
I'll make an amendment to this policy that will make it the same as the previous one. The amended motion would be when the following positions become vacant: associate principal, dean of students, and activities director. The district administrator will ask for board member participation. If none is found, the process will continue. The district administrator shall also provide redacted application information to the board prior to the interview process. The number of board members observing interviews must not constitute a quorum of the full board.
Okay, the amendment on the floor, once again, is what you need to speak to, and that is when the following positions become vacant: associate principal, dean of students, and activities director. The district administrator will ask for board member participation. If none is found, a process will continue. The district administrator shall also provide redacted application information to the board prior to the interview process. The number of board members observing interviews must not constitute a quorum of the full board. We will direct our comments to that amendment to the motion.
I was just curious, Danny, what Andy was thinking when he voted against it, how he's going to make it better. But I'm addressing that to you, so you can address it to him, or is that illegal? Is that
No, that's legal. Andy, you want to state your concerns of or speak in opposition to this? It's your
Well, we
time.
have gone from board members being, observing this process to being the process. So they are now part of the committee, and I assume they get a vote, and
No.
Only to observe.
The last sentence states.
We are not participating. Or are we missing that link? Oh, yeah, it says without participating.
Actually, without participating is stricken.
yeah. So if you would, maybe I got to have you read that again, but doesn't it say that the superintendent will ask if people want to
Board member participation.
board member participation? So I would ask Julie, is this what you intended? He's on my 10 minutes, so don't take too long. I might.
Actually, no, because I think my understanding of Trina's original motion was the language saying interested in observing the interviews without participating, and that sounded awkward. So it was understood that board members would be there as part of the process. But then, as Noel pointed out at the end, the number of board members observing interviews must not constitute. So in my mind, it was an attempt to clean up the language, but still not give board members a vote in the hire.
Correct.
In my mind, it just makes it confusing because you're saying you're, in one line, you're saying you're participating, and in the final line, you're saying you're observing.
May I ask Trina a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Was that your original intention, was to clean up that language, Trina?
Full disclosure, no, I think either if you're going to be in the room, you participate. If you're not in the room, you don't participate.
Okay.
Because I think, has somebody coming in to interview, somebody's just watching me. That's weird to me. So either you're participating or not participating.
And there's not a quorum of the board.
Right.
Well, hold on one second, we're still with Andy.
Can make a motion.
I thought, okay, but, yeah, to me, you could be in the room, and when introductions are made, you say, Andy Mary is a member of the board, and he will be here observing. And there's nothing weird about that, in my opinion.
Are you done? You yield the floor?
I guess,
Okay.
I don't
Any
fully
other
understand
comments?
this, because Trina was talking on my 10
Any other
minutes, but I
comments?
didn't.
Well, the question came actually through Julie to Trina, so Julie reeled her in. It's her fault.
Uh-huh, okay. Well, my 10 minutes
Okay.
probably up.
You got 6 minutes.
Jill?
I am speaking in support of the motion. Again, as previously stated in the last agenda item, it is a positive compromise after a thorough discussion that allows for the district administrator to essentially still be able to pick his or her staff in terms of the recommendation to the board, but it just increases the level of involvement by individual board members, so long as it doesn't constitute a quorum, to be more engaged in the process if they so choose. If board members choose not to engage in the process, the board is still provided the redacted applications. Again, going back to being able to have more information when it comes to a vote without needing to actively participate in the process, to feel comfortable about a vote in favor of or against. So it's just a more well-informed decision. And again, further supports the superintendent to back that recommendation with just having basic information that's redacted, so the identifying information of the applicants is not available.
Okay. Anybody else? Dr.
In
Deep?
that case, for clarification, I'd like to offer a second order amendment.
Okay, can the members state their amendment, please?
Sure. Where we are saying, okay, I'll probably read it. When the following positions become vacant, Associate Principal, Dean of Students and Activities Director, the district administrator shall ask if any board members are interested in observing the interviews.
Sorry, Dr. Deep, that's not germane to the motion because the district administrator shall ask if any board members are interested in observing the interviews without participating is not part of the
No,
motion.
but
You want to change this motion?
this one, yeah.
Thank you.
So what I am saying is the district administrator will ask for board members to observe the process. And if none is found, the process will continue. That will bring it into parity with what is there in the next sentence where it says the number of board members observing. So
Okay.
that will make it clear.
You want to write that in there?
Yep, there you go.
I know you're a doctor, but please make it where I can read it.
I'll be able to read it.
Kristen can interpret for me. Please forgive me, Dr. Deep, I don't mean to be offensive.
That's okay.
You'll catch me the next time I'm in his office.
So we'll have to change it. If we vote this, then we have to change that to this next time. Which is, I knew that, but I just asked.
We had a lot of new business at the beginning, so
Do you think it's worth having the full board just always do the policy committee? Or do you think we went a step further doing the policy committee before we came here?
No, I believe going forward, what we discussed at the policy committee, it becomes my responsibility to speak with Dr. Sprague before even calling a policy committee meeting. So if somebody comes to me and says, we need to change this policy, okay, let's look at it. And then Dr. Sprague and I will talk about it, and we'll get Neola on the line, and Mary Kay can help with that process with Neola. That's what we talked about in the committee.
Okay.
Yep.
I feel like we should have a computer so we can type it up there, so somebody can scribe it so we can all see it. And then,
I
because we
agree.
did the same thing at the meeting, we had a hard time
We did.
communicating the precision of the language to Angie's point. So then we made a verbal understanding because we couldn't read it to each other very good. And we could have solved the problem just by typing out our verbal understanding instead of redoing this for another hour.
The amendment to the amendment now reads, when the following positions become vacant, Associate Principal, Dean of Students, and Activities Director, the district administrator will ask for board members to observe the interview process, and if none is available, the process will continue. The district administrator shall also provide redacted application information to the board prior to the interview process. The number of board members observing interviews must not constitute a quorum of the full board. Dr. Deep, this is your amendment to the amendment. Is there anything else you want to add to this?
I think I spoke
Anybody would like to speak to the amendment to the amendment?
If we approve this, can we just recall the
AD.
previous one?
We cannot. We'll have to take that up in our next meeting at the second reading. No other discussion? You are voting on the amendment to the amendment that states when the following positions become vacant: Associate Principal, Dean of Students, and Activities Director. The district administrator will ask for board members to observe the interview process, and if none is available, the process will continue. The district administrator shall also provide redacted application information to the board prior to the interview process. The number of board members observing interviews must not constitute a quorum of the full board. All those in favor of the amendment to the amendment, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
The amendment to the amendment is carried. Now we will vote on the amendment to the motion, which is what I've just read. Do I need to read that again?
This is the First Amendment.
This is the Second Amendment now becomes the First Amendment. So we are voting on the amendment to the motion, which is what Dr. Deep amended it to.
Okay.
All those in favor of the amendment to the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. Now we are voting on the main motion. The main motion is now what the amendment to the amendment was. Do I need to read that again? No? All those in favor of the motion as it reads, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
And the motion carries. That is for the first reading of the policy 3130. And we will have both of those policies, 3120 and 3130, back to us in December for a second reading. Dr. Bardo?
Mary Kay, could you please put the amendment that Dr. Deep just got passed in red so that we see that as a change within the green? So that it'll be easy for us to know what to put in 3120. Thank you.
Okay. Can we move one more item? Letter D, consideration to approve video intercom upgrade. I'll be looking for a motion.
I move the board approve the video intercom upgrade from Camera Corner in the amount of $30,031.
The motion on the floor is I move the board approve the video intercom upgrade from Camera Corner in the amount of $30,031. Is there any discussion? Dr. Deep, you made the motion.
Well, after reviewing the provided information, it looks like it's a step in the right direction to improve our security and the process at the schools. The only question I have is, can we have it at the other doors too?
Mark can work on that. Any other discussion? Hearing no discussion, The motion on the floor is I move the board approve the video intercom upgrade from Camera Corner in the amount of $30,031. All in favor of the motion on the floor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say aye, and the motion's carried. I am going to call for a 5-minute recess. I'm getting ayes from our secretary. Please, let's get back here in 5 minutes.
Two meetings in a row I've had to leave.
From coffee.
I don't know if I can go, Dave, I've been sitting there for 3 hours, I don't know if I can move.
My package from Amazon's on the way. Didn't even know I ordered it. Christmas time. Surprise when it gets off the porch. Oh yeah, I did order that.
It feels really warm in here now.
I agree. I feel very flushed.
Hmm? Do you double dog dare me? I don't double dog. Because you know I will.
Do you want me to get some background music?
Yes.
I wouldn't want to make you do acapella.
I don't know what exactly you're doing, but do it.
I think you only talk if we ask you questions.
Yes.
I hope we're still on TV. Yeah, I don't know, that's a good question.
That's what you should do. Give them a show.
Kids, if you're still awake, go to bed.
You let your kids eat this?
2 of them. Well, if they eat. Because I know the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 are just gonna fly.
That would be nice.
Aren't you happy you're on the board?
Very grateful for this opportunity.
You're home, your kids are in bed already.
That's right.
This is so much more fun than any TV you could watch at home.
TV will still be there when I get home.
But will you watch it?
I'm a night owl.
Are you really?
Are you? So what time will you get up?
Well, I usually have to be to work by 8, so.
So you.
What time again?
I probably could have it.
What time do you want to be woken up?
6:30 a.m. That's what time we get
That's
moving.
way too late.
What time you
You're up at 4:30.
Really?
I don't even know that 4 comes twice.
You must have a lot of coffee during the day.
3-4 cups. Yeah, by midnight if I get in, about 4:30 start waking up.
Ooh.
Then it's nice and quiet.
I can barely get out of bed at 6:30. When I have to start getting to work at 6, I'm just struggling all the time. get up really early or what, Trina?
5 o'clock.
We go to work around 10:30.
Are you a night owl or are you a morning person?
I'm anytime I could get sleep right now is
What's that? You what?
anytime I could get sleep right now is great.
Sleep?
Brian, man.
I'm supposed to tell you that Brian and Paxton are still awake.
They're waiting for you to come home, read them a story. You gotta read your
I
kids a
have to read
story
a story because
every
he's gonna be
night.
behind if I don't get home and read.
Tell Brian to read. That's what I'm sure my wife is waiting too. My kid, I should text her. Never being home tonight. Doesn't she give it up about 9 o'clock? We never get Winston to bed till like 10. I'm a slacker. We read to him. I make him practice his phonics. He watches iPad. He takes like 10 minutes to brush his teeth while he watches the iPad. Hey, I got mine done.
Oh, I've been doing that one.
Oh, tonight? Okay. Oh, okay.
I had a cup of coffee on my way here.
Okay, we will come back to order, please.
I'm here.
Okay, moving on to item E. Item E is consideration to approve middle school window option. I will be looking for a motion.
I'll make the motion, or I'd like to postpone this to, because we're getting so late, and I feel like we're gonna have discussion on this and a lot of questions and everything, and since we're so late, I'd like to postpone this to the December 19th, I believe, meeting.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor to postpone to this to be the first item of action on the board of December the 19th. It is amendable, it is debatable. All it requires is a majority vote. So the motion on the floor is to postpone the consideration to approve the middle school window option to December 19th board meeting. Is there any discussion? First, Angie, is there anything else you want to add to that, because you made that motion?
I just want to say that at that time, we'd have probably a little bit more information on the building capacity study,
Okay,
so.
all right, Andy, go ahead.
I'll just ask Jake, when Clint was there,
Hold 1 second. We can't ask any questions. We're talking to the motion, and the motion is just to postpone. And I'm sorry, we have to direct all of our comments to the postponing.
I believe in the committee meeting when Clint was there, we talked about that we wanted to get this moving, or we won't have much chance of getting anything done on it next summer. And so part of this would be coming from ESSER funds, and those ESSER funds have to be used by, I'm thinking, August 1st of 2024. But it's not likely that this project would get done in 1 year. And so if we don't get it moving this year, it won't get moving, or we won't be able to use those ESSER funds for the majority of it.
Do you recall at that meeting if there was a deadline that needed to be met? No?
I don't think there was a hard deadline that he gave. It's just a matter of getting it going. And I agree with Angie. I'd much rather have that other study first. But for some reason, that other study has been slow to get here.
Okay.
Point of clarification.
State your point of
What
question of privilege.
What is the year? Is it calendar year or the fiscal year? What year are you referring to in this discussion?
That those ESSER funds have to be used by?
No, the clarification was about that the expert came in and said that it has to be decided this year. When you said that the decision has to be made this year, are we referring?
He's only saying that if we want bids for something to happen this coming summer, we need to get that process going.
By the end of this calendar year, before December?
I don't think he put a date on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So postponing it by a month would not make a difference in that.
Well, I think every month that goes by, other districts put their bids in and companies get filled up. I mean, I don't know that for a fact, but I know you have to get things, the supply chain now. Hopefully these windows don't come from China, but the supply chain in general is just a little out of whack.
Okay, so Andy is speaking against the motion. Would anybody like to speak in favor of the motion of postponing this item to December 19th board meeting for board action? All right, anybody like to speak in favor of or against postponing this item to the December 19th, 2022 board meeting for action?
I'll speak in favor of postponement to allow adequate time for discussion, given the length of the current meeting, and it seems reasonable that there would be discussion based upon the current motion, and I think that is a responsible thing to do as a board, to provide ample opportunity for discussion and understanding.
Okay. Anybody else like to speak against postponing this to December 19, 2022 board meeting? Anybody else want to speak in favor of? The chair has given plenty of notice for speaking in the motion that is on the floor, and the motion is to postpone item E, consideration to approve middle school window option, to the December 19, 2022 board meeting for action and discussion at that time. That is what you're voting upon right now. All in favor of postponing to December the 19th, 2022 board meeting, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed postponing this to December the 19th, 2022 board meeting, let it be known by saying aye.
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 The chair's undecided here. Mary Kay, can we see? Well, let's do a hand raise. We can do that. If you are in favor of sending this to December 19, 2022 board meeting, let it be known by raising your hand. Mary Kay, you got a count? If you are against sending this to the December 19, 2022 board meeting, let it be known by raising your hand.
Five to four.
The 5 to 4 for postponing? Yes, the motion then is carried because all it requires is a simple majority. That will be postponed to the December 19 board meeting. Item F, consideration to approve communication plan. I will be looking for a motion, please.
I'd like to move that we postpone this to the December 19th board meeting as well, just because of the time and how long we've been in this meeting, to allow for ample conversation and yeah, just thorough discussion on it.
Okay, the motion is on the floor to postpone item F, consideration to approve communication plan, to the December 19, 2022 board meeting for action as item number 2 on board action for that meeting. Anything else you want to add to that?
There's quite a bit of things in here that I would like to see addressed and brought up in discussions, so I think it'll be a little bit of a lengthy discussion.
Okay. I'm going to let Dr. Sprague speak to this. She's patiently waiting.
last time this was on the agenda, we agreed, and it was in the minutes, that board members would email me their questions that I would address in the draft in a different color. So that's a month's time. I have not received one email. So the other thing I'd like to point out is that this is not a document that would be shared with the public or put on our website. It's really a roadmap for our employees and me to just have concerted efforts to improve communication. And that's what I would ask for your vote on tonight. I can't imagine that any one of you would be opposed to approved communication. It's not a perfect document because it's not meant to be published. It's just meant to have ideas for us to improve what we're doing, some of which we've done already. We have a newsletter draft that's ready to go out. The companion piece that you saw with the report cards is a direct result of this plan. So we're just trying some things, and I would ask you to support our improvement efforts. It's not meant to be wordsmithed.
Okay, any discussion on the motion that's on the floor is to postpone item F to the December 19, 2022 school board meeting. Any other discussion?
I'll call the question.
There hasn't been any discussion, Mr. Member, so we need to allow discussion before we can call a question.
Let's try.
Any discussion? Third and final time, any?
I would speak in opposition of that motion. We had this at the last meeting, I believe. So it seems like there's been opportunity to comment on it. And as Julie said, I think we ought to just move forward with it so we get going on doing some communication.
Any other discussion on the postponement of item F to December 19, 2022 board? We've had one opposing. Is there anybody in favor of postponing? Angie?
I'm looking at the previous full board agenda, and we had one second. I know the clock's ticking. So anytime, and while it was on the agenda, anytime it says that there's goals, and then it's I don't know how many pages long, 14 pages long. I think there's gonna be debate. There's stuff that I want to ask and bring up, and I mean, if we want to sit here for another hour, okay. But that's why I am in favor of postponing this, and it's not anything that is critical to operations that we discussed tonight.
Okay. Is there any other member who wants to speak in favor of or against postponing this to the December 19, 2022 board meeting? A question that I have, if the chair can do so, is in the event that we do not postpone this, and any one of the 9 members of the board want to see something different, would this have to come back to the board to change? Or is this something that the board member can meet with you, Dr. Sprague, about and discuss it? And because this is just a roadmap, it's not policy, it's not procedure, it's just a roadmap. And I don't want to I'm not making that light just a roadmap. It is a roadmap. So is that possible that any one of the 9 members can bring anything to you?
Yes.
If this doesn't go?
Because I consider it a living document that will be continuously revised. And for our eyes, it's not something we're going to share with families necessarily, although they'd be the recipients of some of the items in here. So, yes, I think it would be continuously updated, and I would also offer that even in week in review, because I hadn't heard any
Okay.
responses from the board, I put a reminder in there because that was what we agreed on a month ago.
If any board member comes to you now, do the administrators have
A copy?
a copy of this, and have they had input on making this? So if an administrator or a board member comes to you and says, we need to change our guidelines for communication, can we have it where not only do they come and talk to you, but this is something that you bring back to the board as changing the communication guideline in the future? So I have something that I want to say to change verbiage or whatever. I come to you and talk to you about it, and then we bring it to the board to have the board to say, yes, let's add that or take that away. I don't know. I'm
Point of
spitballing
order,
here.
I think you're off what the motion is here. We could be talking about this when we get to the motion.
You are
and
exactly
approving
right,
this.
Mr. Member. Thank you so much for correcting the chair, because the motion is to postpone. I was just trying to clarify, if questions arise, should this be not postponed, can it be changed in a future date?
I understand that's what you're trying to clarify, but that should be clarified when we're
Yep.
discussing the motion.
Gotcha. The motion on the floor is to postpone to December the 19th, 2022. All in favor of postponing this to December the 19th, 2022, let it be known by a show of hands. You got them all? Those opposed to postponing this to December the 19th, 2022, let it be known by showing hands. Six?
Oh, I'm sorry,
Six,
yes.
6-3. Motion is denied. We will not postpone this to December the 19th. So the item on the floor is consideration to approve communication plan. I will be looking for a motion.
I move the board approve the communication plan, a roadmap to guide district personnel to improve communications with all stakeholders as presented.
Motion is on the floor. Dr. Deep, you have the floor to speak to the motion.
I will keep it brief, as we have already heard from the superintendent, and reviewing the provided information, it appears that this is a document that spells out the directions for our administration as they streamline the process of improving communication between the stakeholders and with their community. And it is not going to be in the public realm, but for guidance of the administration, so I support it.
Okay. Discussion. I am sorry, Jake, did you see which hand went up first between Angie and JD? Did anybody see?
What?
I think
it was Angie.
Angie? Okay. Angie, go
Okay.
ahead.
So I'm against this because, first off, in the key messages, right? So this is like the first talking, first directive. Out of the 7, the 7 points, there is only 2 that actually reference any kind of academic achievement or growth. The rest of it is solely based on, basically, social, emotional behaviors. And I think we're getting, again, back into that, where I stated earlier, where we're focusing on that more so than we are the educating side of things. And so, for example, number 2, we will provide a safe and supportive environment for all students and staff, no matter what socioeconomic status, race, religion, gender, or sexual identity they may be. Now, that can mean a whole plethora of things, so I don't agree with that. We will build, number 3, we will build relationships with students and staff to promote a sense of belonging. Okay, well, there's an issue with that. I mean, are we going to allow students to pretend to be animals because they feel like they need a sense of belonging, or are we in the, are we here to educate children? So this is the issues that I take with this. And I apologize to Julie regarding asking for input. When you stated that, I thought you wanted input on the strategic plan goals. And so I was waiting to see like what you came out with the strategic plan goals, and then was going to respond to that. So I apologize for not understanding what you meant. I'm done.
Okay, the member yields the floor. JD,
Can I propose limiting debate for only 5 more minutes?
for this one item.
Yes.
Okay, so you want to limit debate. It is amendable, and it requires a 2/3 vote. Motion is on the floor to limit debate to 5 minutes on this item entirely. 5 minutes per person.
5 minutes total.
That wouldn't be germane because we have 10 minutes per person to speak.
I thought that was amendable.
Okay, you either amend the
I mean-
time limit to speak, or I'm just trying to help you out here.
Right.
You can't set a time limit shorter than what a person can speak for. That would go against the,
I thought a motion to limit debate are allowed on your first page.
they are allowed to limit, to extend or limit debates, but you're asking to limit the debate to 5 minutes, but we have a set for 10 minutes for each person to speak. So the next, if what you're saying is true, whoever speaks next would be the last speaker.
Could be the last speaker.
Could be, unless they speak in 1 minute, and, yeah.
Okay, well, I didn't want to spend more time on this than I'm not, I need help from Dave.
It's okay. What's your help? 2 minutes per person.
2 minutes per person, okay, thank you. I didn't want to spend more time.
Okay, we will limit the debate to 2 minutes per person. That is what's on the floor. All those in, it's amendable. Is anybody like to offer an amendment? It's not debatable, you can just offer an amendment. No amendment to be offered. 2 minutes for limiting speech. All in favor of limiting speech by 2 minutes, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. I believe 2/3 won. We will now limit our speech to 2 minutes on this item. Next person?
I just have,
Oh, Jill?
I can ask a question now?
Yep.
I'm just curious, Dr. Sprague, only question is additional stakeholders. The Boys and Girls Club is listed, and I noticed they're the only specific entity. Others are just broad categories like faith leaders, future residents. I'm curious if you could share Boys and Girls Club, why they were chosen specifically to be named as an additional stakeholder in comparison to any other business or potential specifically identified stakeholders.
Good question. It's because of shared programming, the Be Great graduate program and the after-school program where we share students, so that was why. Because we communicate often with them on behalf of those students.
Mr. President, can I ask a second clarifying question to Dr. Sprague?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that the only entity in which we do that?
The others are more confidentially based, not broad and open to the public like that. Like we might have a student who works with an organization in the community and we might have a release to share information, but it isn't general. Does that make sense?
Is there a stakeholder that you think that may be missing from that list?
It's an internal document, and so therefore, it seems like it shouldn't be an issue had it be an external document, though this meeting can be viewed by others. That's my only thing, was it just felt off to read one specific entity identified and the others broad, because it could actually have and I could be reading too much into it. 2 minutes total, so I'm maybe at 15 seconds. Just saying, it may have the adverse impact. Good timing.
Anybody else have a comment? I'm looking at JD 3 times to make sure. Okay, the motion on the floor then is to approve the communication plan, a roadmap to guide district personnel to improve communications with all stakeholders as presented. Mary Kay, I'm going to ask for a roll call.
Deep,
Yes.
Maddox Nelson,
No.
Matt Miller,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Shriver,
No.
Schrader,
Yes.
Bardo,
No.
Bordeman,
Yes.
and Pyatt.
No. I'm sorry, I didn't keep track.
5-4, yes.
5-4 yes.
Then the motion carries. Item G, consideration to approve overnight travel.
I move the board approve the following overnight travel requests. Enigo Varsity Wrestling Team to the Oshkosh Tournament on December 29th and 30th, 2022. Enigo Varsity Wrestling Team to WIAA Regional Tournament in Osceola, Wisconsin on February 10th and 11th, 2023. Enigo Varsity Wrestling Team to Sectional State Qualifying Tournament in Amory, Wisconsin on February 17th and 18th, 2023. And Enigo FFA to Wisconsin FFA Halftime Conference Leadership Reboot in Stevens Point, Wisconsin on January 13th and 14th, 2023.
The motion on the floor is the recommended action item. Any discussion, Dr. Deep? Any other discussion from anybody else? All in favor of accepting the recommended action for the motion of the consideration to approve overnight travel, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. And then it's carried. Letter H, report of district retirements and resignations. Looking for a motion.
I move the board approve the resignations of Andrea Olson, East Elementary Special Education Instructional Assistant, Marie Kolpak, North Elementary Special Education Instructional Assistant, Bondis Solon, Food Services, and Eileen Hartle, AHS, Housekeeping.
Motion on the floor. Jill, do you want to speak to the motion?
No, thank you.
Anybody else want to speak to the motion? I just want to say thank you to these individuals for serving in our district. They made an impact on the kids. Any other comments? All in favor of accepting the report of district retirements and resignations, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, let it be known by saying aye. And the motion carries. Letter I, report of district new hires.
I move the board approve the following new hires: Amy Osmond, 4th grade teacher; Corbin Walraff, custodian; Jamie Hintz, special education instructional assistant; Connie Shackelford, special education instructional assistant. Anybody want to help on that one? Rihanna.
Emerald?
Rhiannon. Oh, Heimerl.
Heimerl, special education instructional assistant, and Jessica Copsby, special education instructional assistant.
Motion is on the floor. Jill, would you like to speak to the motion?
I would like to just simply publicly apologize for my inability to pronounce all names. I'm sorry about that, and I feel bad.
Any other comments? All those in favor of accepting the report of district new hires, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say aye. And it's carried. Letter I, letter J, report of donations.
I move the board accept the following donations: $500 from Thomas Seidel for AHS gymnastics, $100 from Mark and Vicky Jerson for AHS band Rose Bowl trip, $1,000 from Deerbrook Ridge Runners for AHS band Rose Bowl trip, $300 from Schrader Brothers Farm Schrader Gifts for AHS band Rose Bowl trip, $100 from Charles Jackson for AHS band Rose Bowl trip, $100 from Betty Jo Soling for AHS band Rose Bowl trip, $100 from Don and Jean Guzzi for AHS band Rose Bowl trip, $319 from B&B Containers for Homecoming Dumpster, and $180 from AHS class of 1977 for AHS band Rose Bowl trip. Donation of water from Northern Chill for AHS Student Council fundraiser and AHS Career Fair.
Motion is made on the floor. Dr. Deep, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, I'd just like to thank them for their generosity.
Any other member like to say anything? Hearing no discussion, all in favor of accepting these report of donations from the generous contributors to our district, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, let it be known by saying aye. And it carries. Thank you so much. The next Board of Education meeting will be held on Monday, December 19, 2022 at 7 p.m. I will be trying to find somebody to make an adjournment.
So moved.
We're out of here. All those in favor of adjourning, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
And anybody want to stay longer?
No. I started laughing here and trying not to when you brought up Dr. Hartwig, Eric. I've known him, if not 30 years. Did you know he was a drummer in a very hot